Good evening and welcome everybody. It is the Darwin 150, the sixth round of the 2024 ASR Supercars Championship. And we're up and over the halfway point in the season. There's 11 rounds and 26, I think it is, races that are on the cards. We've completed the first 12, and tonight races 13 and 14 bring us up and over half distance throughout the championship. The championship lead-up, he loves this place. Kurt Stenberg, he's had plenty of success around Hidden Valley over the years in ASR. He's just starting to edge that lead away over the last couple of rounds. But the important thing for him is, can he keep the momentum going? There's plenty of drivers clamouring to claw back that advantage. And the question I'm going to ask you tonight, Benjamin Roddy Rhodes, is what has the rest of the field got in store for the championship leader? Can they eat into the little advantage that he has built in the last couple of rounds?
Well, hello to yourself and hello to everyone else watching along at home, whatever time of the day it is for you. And yeah, on the face of it, you know, we've known what Kurt Stenberg's been like for the past couple of years. We know sort of where his favourites has been. You know, we came off his home track last round, where a track that he's been very familiar with as well. This is one of the tracks in previous years that had been developing. We are using our own version this year. But previous season, we're using a version that he's worked in, so he's very familiar with Hidden Valley as well. But yeah, on the face of it, you know, should be pretty comfortably positioned. But off of practice times, although he's improved in the last couple of minutes, he was looking pretty shaky there for a bit. So nothing's really set in stone just yet.
No, I'd agree with that. And along with a number of drivers that are sort of a bit late to the party this evening, his times for a little bit didn't quite truly reflect what was going on, but I think it was more about getting a race pace handle on the car and just do a couple quick runs at the end of practice and just see where the car sits and feels in its race trim for qualifying. And very tight early on in qualifying tonight, I expect it to be. It has been quite tight in practice before tonight as well. So a little bit to look forward to. Slightly reduced field tonight as well, which is not too bad, all things considered. We've been up in the upper echelons, or tapping on the door of 30 cars around for the last round or two. And especially in development series as well, there's been 2 consecutive rounds of 30 plus in a maximum field of 34. So that goes to show you the strength that's sitting on the outside looking in so to speak, come into Supercars. They're the guys that are waiting to take the spots of any of the drivers that are in this series, should they decide not to continue, or if there's an opportunity to do so. But it's not too bad an idea to have a slightly reduced field every now and again. It gives everybody a little bit more room on track, and gives us a bit of time ready to pay attention to what's going on, because there's been plenty of drivers doing some notable performances over the last couple of rounds, but because of the action all the way up and down the field, sometimes they haven't quite got the airtime that they've deserved.
Yeah, there's been a few guys that haven't been sort of flying right at the front end of the pack, but guys that, off of the performances that we've seen them in previous years, or even some of the guys that are new into the pack as well, that, you know, we've got an expectation in our minds of where they should be on pace. And granted, some of those maybe haven't quite been holding to those standards, but a lot of the guys, without getting any airtime to themselves, have been able to put into performances. And we don't see them then on the race nights, but they'll be popping up on the point sheets as well, as guys that maybe not in the top 5, but top 5, top 6, top 7. I mean, we keep talking about Lewis Wedding, who, you know, is only meant to pop up every so often, but up until tonight at least, he's made all but one of the rounds, which is why he's still in the top 10. But yeah, there's a few guys on that list that are sort of the back end of the top 10, just out of the top 10, who are just quietly plugging away. And with what we expect of them, we think, you know, what the expectation is, you know, they maybe shouldn't be there, but no, they are. They're just quietly working away. And maybe as the season goes on, we might see them improve a little bit further, and they'll get into the frame of reference where we actually start to see them a little more on the broadcast.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll actually get into the point standings in between qualifying and the race this evening. So what we'll actually do first is have a look at our track, the 2.87 kilometre circuit in the top end of Australia, the furthest circuit north on the calendar that we visit all season long on the Australian continent. The exception to that, of course, is going to be the Long Beach Street Circuit, which is the furthest north of Australia in general that we go to this year, coming up in a couple of rounds' time. It's not too far out of Darwin. 14 turns and 2.87 kilometres. The big long front straight is the key feature of this circuit, as well as the hairpin up at turn 6. So a couple of passing opportunities down into turn 1 and to turn 6. A couple of smaller opportunities at turn 5 and turn 14. 14, you've got to have a little bit of a lunge late coming down the hill into the final corner, but that is fraught with a little bit of danger. And the races tonight, this is the short format and the long format. So we have a shorter 18-lap sprint to start tonight. We have a longer 35-lap race for the second race tonight. And, well, there's a couple of talking points on this one, Rhodey. One is the fuel in race 2, because that's the key point there. But the biggest point is the tyres. And we saw in development series that some drivers could get a pretty decent span out of some of the tyres, but some drivers did need a little bit of safety car help to extend the life of those soft tyres. So that's the big question mark tonight, is whether or not tyres will last the distance more so than fuel in some cases, because you can fuel save your way out of trouble here.
Absolutely, yeah. It's going to go a bit of both ways, especially with how the differences between the Dev Series and how the Supercars Series this year behave and how they wear through their tyres and their fuel. Yeah, it's slightly bigger fuel tank in the Gen 3 cars, but also the races are longer, so it's much of a muchness in that case. But yeah, definitely around the tyre wear, and we'll get into that as the race goes on as well. But yeah, absolutely. For the shorter race, there's a few strategies at play, but it's really going to be probably down to one or two options, depending on if a safety car comes out, which might influence some of the decisions at the back of the field. But race 2, very much open. There's so 2 leading options, and I've heard up to 4, or there'll just be different permutations of the existing options.
Yes, correct. I've seen there's probably at least 4 potential strategy options in play for the longer race tonight, and that longer race is a progressive grid from the race 1 finishing results as well. So qualifying pretty important. Where you finish race 1, very important, because that has a knock-on effect for race number 2. But yes, there's a couple of different ideas about what will happen in race number 1 versus race number 2. Now, development series, I think we got all the way, we got about a third of the way through race 2 before the safety car came out, which sort of spiced the pack up a little bit. And I think I can't remember, I think we might have gone safety car free in race number 1 Friday last week.
No,
no, we didn't. Did we, or did we not go?
It was first lap. I think it was.
Oh, first lap.
Corner.
That's right.
There was the big pile up, and I was one of the guys that pitted right at the end of that safety car, and basically got a running start on the restart. But
that's right.
Yeah,
yes,
that was an early one, and then the race went green from there.
Yes, that's right. So thank you for correcting me on that one, because you're absolutely right, because that actually meant that anybody who'd started on the soft tyre was actually able to make it home without a problem. So that's kind of the hit and hope strategy that a lot of drivers are looking at tonight. If they get a safety car at the right time to preserve some of the tyres, then you'll be able to get those soft tyres comfortably home in race number 1. But race number 2 is a little bit of a different story. All right, we are not going to waste any time tonight. We are going to very much get into qualifying pretty quickly. And there's a couple of reasons for that. 1, we want to get the night over and done with. But 2, somebody has a plane to catch early in the morning. And I mean, somebody as in somebody in the singular. That means me. So we are going to try and truck through the night fairly quickly. In terms of just making sure that all the sessions run to time as quickly as possible or as efficiently as possible. There's also going to be no interviews between race 1 and race 2. We will grab a couple of people at the end of the night. But not during the night, unfortunately. So that's just a couple of little permutations to have. But that's what happens when you have a 20 past 6 a.m. flight and you live an hour from the airport. So things, unfortunately, have to happen in a certain order. All right,
Yeah,
26 cars tonight? Actually, 27, I think it was meant to be 27. I think maybe we may have just potentially lost one driver in the last few seconds or so, dropping out of quali, but we'll wait and see what happens there.
Yeah, it would have been Pete Thoreau.
Yeah.
Just rocked out, which I think would happen after we ticked over, which if that's the case, that's really unfortunate.
Yeah, that's unlucky, right on the cusp as well. It's not the only person that's happened to over the course of time, and we have now got cars that are preparing themselves to exit the lane. Big, long lineup of cars. Not a surprise, given qualifying is just 10 minutes. There is never a lot of time in quali, so you've got to plan your runs. You've got to think about when you want to leave the lane, how you want to structure that opening run, then what time you come back in, put on a new set of tyres. And most of the time we do tend to see that drivers will indeed do a split strategy. So they'll do the first maybe out lap, maybe 2 laps running, and that'll get them to about 4 minutes remaining. Get in, grab another set of tyres and go again, and you'll probably find you'll cross the line with a handful of minutes, probably a handful of seconds actually left on the clock, which means you do get about 4 or 5 laps flying around the circuit. So it's not too bad if you can time your run quite nicely. First driver that is out and setting some laps at the moment is going to be Ryan Smith, and towing Daniel Cox behind him is getting a nice suck job down the front straight here as we head towards turn 1. Highest speed approach on the circuit. Car wiggles a little bit under brakes there and actually pulls it up quite nicely at the end of the day. Second apex, power out of the corner, use all the available road on the outside and set sail up through the kink here and up to turn 5. This was the scene of the incident that Rody mentioned in the development series at race 1 on Friday last week, which caused the early safety car. Very easy to do. There's definitely a few people that would try and put their nose up the inside there if the opportunity presents itself, and especially on lap 1 it can become quite a congestion point. Through turn 7, this brings us up towards the sector 2 marker, just up near the 50-metre board, which has been tripped now, and then this is the downhill section. So you've spent a lot of your time going uphill, not too much of an incline uphill, but then this very quick little downhill snake through the lefts and rights, and then nailing the last corner. Very important, a little bit of a wiggle there as you apply the power on exit, getting a little bit too greedy. Your target time's going to be in the 6s, so if you can get into the high 6s, low 7s, you're not doing too badly. And a 7.4 for Smith is not too bad, but he's actually just been surpassed by Daniel Cox behind, who's just done a fractionally better 7.4. So early goings here. Noah Tara now the next one, and that's the target time we were talking about, into the 6s. Pole, I think, Rody, we're probably looking at a mid-6. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I'd say that's probably where we're going to be aiming for. Tara was the quickest up until the last 10 seconds or so. Kurt Stenberg then to the top, but not quite much at all. And Tara is on a purple first sector, so I expect to see that time change again within the next minute or so. But yeah, the gaps at the top not quite as big as I was expecting. It's Stenberg on top currently with, if I wait for his time to the ground, there is 6.913. But only 0.02 behind is Noah Tara, and he, as I said, on a purple lap, moving pretty close in there as well, as is Wayne Walker, and it's less than 0.1 of a second covering the top 4 as things currently sit, but we've still got 6.5 minutes of the session left to go.
Yep, Phil Boak puts in his first lap of the night actually right there as well, and Noah Tara was still purple up to, actually wasn't quite purple, he was purple in sector 1, he was personal best in sector 2, on his way to the line and goes to the top. 6.61 is now the new benchmark, so he puts nearly 3/10, actually 2.5 tenths to be precise, increases the advantage over Kurt Stenberg, who's just leaving the lane at the moment to set another run. So very tight at the top. You mentioned that top 4 for a few seconds was only separated by a tenth, so it's extended a little bit more now. So not to be, I guess, too upset about that being a close finish, but there's still a little while to go in this qualifying session. Just approaching the half distance mark in this session in the next few seconds or so. Now you will notice a number of drivers, or Termo's doing a good example there of going sideways, but a number of drivers have opted of course for the Indigenous liveries this round, so I think there's at least 7 or 8 cars that have painted those types of liveries for this round. One will be run at the next round, which is Steve Burko, unfortunately missing tonight, so he's going to run that Indigenous livery painted by Nathan Higginson at the Sydney Motorsport Park round in 3 weeks' time.
Yeah, it's one of those curious things where Nathan Higginson painted Steve Burko's livery, and Higginson's actually then gone and outsourced his livery to someone else as well. And it's one of those things where Higginson, being probably one of the more prolific painters in ASR, I think he's only painted one of his. He's already got all his 5 slots taken up for the regular season. I think he's only painted one of those cars. So I've already had a chat to him about the guy who is designing his liveries. We'll mention it in the race, but he's probably getting a bigger logo on the car to see how much work he's putting into Higginson's at this year.
Well, there he is, speaking of Devil, Nathan Higgins. It's actually got a bit of a NASCAR theme to it with the way that the 00 is on the side of the car. We'll get a good shot of it here going through turn 5. You can see it there, that slanted or italicised 00 on the side, going with the Indigenous theme livery, and he's actually just one spot ahead of Egmanus at the moment, who we were watching a few seconds ago. Not too far behind Higginson on the road, Anthony Green. He's got a bit of work to do, I would say, Rody. That's a pretty decent first sector. He's not that far off his own PB and not that far off the pole time, but for Green, it sort of has gone a bit pear-shaped in the next couple of sectors, and he was at the front in Super 2 a week ago and throwing down the gauntlet at one stage to the eventual Race 1 winner in Darryl Callahan, who's got his second race win in development series this year out of the last 4 races, so making a nice little charge there. At one stage it was Paint Doctor with 3 wins in a row. That's what's going to upset him, leaving those big licorice straps coming out of the final corner. That's going to hurt his run onto the front straight. He picked up a couple of tenths, be enough to move him up the order a bit, moves him up to 11th, but it could have been a lot better if not for that slide job in the final corner.
Yeah, he already dropped 2 tenths coming into the second sector marker, and then another half a second as he came to the line. So yeah, that would be the big loss, but he's just picking up speed in different ways, and he's doing a different strategy to what I'm seeing a lot of other drivers do. A lot of the drivers are generally fairly respectful of the curve from the last sector because it's a very short downhill section. You already throw a lot of momentum, a lot of energy in the car. You want to try and keep that under control. Green's got the different approach where he's basically attacking it like you would a Gold Coast chicane, and he's using the curb and then some, hooking the inside of the car up over the curb and getting it through the corner that way, which I wouldn't think could be a way that to work, but it seems to run all right pace. As I said, he's kept well off the curbs this time around, so maybe that's actually going to help him out. Maybe that wasn't a planned line. We saw the one time where he got his turn in a little bit wrong. I will say as well, actually, I've just noticed ahead of him on the road just ahead is Woggy Burke, who we didn't think was going to make it in for tonight. So we do at least have one of the fixed cars in tonight. Yep. By Pixelated Elf Autosports. Yep. But yeah, he's just proved again Anthony Green up to 8th. Yep, so he's moved up the order a bit there as well. While we were keeping an eye on some other cars that were running around the circuit. I'm just cycling through to see if I can find a car or two. So Alex Kiddis, who's gone quietly about his business at the moment. That turn that he just went through at the top of the hill there, just behind, in front of the PCS board, that's one of the curbs that you can use and hook it to turn the car. That's definitely an option there at the top of the hill because it's a sort of a double apex corner, as Alex, I think, is finished for that particular run there. He's pulled over to the side of the track. But you can definitely hook that curb at the top of the hill and then use it to pull the car around and straighten the run up, especially because sometimes these cars do have a tendency to understeer. We'll get a good illustration here, I think, from Cam Rutledge. So it's these 2 turns here, that curb there and that curb there. So Cam's just ridden the curb on the inside there and it pulled the car around quite nicely, and it allows you to straighten the car up quite a lot. Cam will get 2 more laps, and Redmond behind will get 2 more laps, so too will Daniel Cox. So these guys are all on their final runs at the moment. Bit of a mixed up order in the grid at the moment. So Noah Tara still holding sway and pole. He's actually lowered his mark to a 6.5. So definitely got 2 tenths on Alex Kiddis, who's the big surprise in qualifying at the moment, I have to say, Rody. Yep.
Tim Redmond has just moved his way up to 3rd on a 6.7 ahead of Stenberg on a 6.8. And then Luke Newing and Will Devonish. So there is a lot of drivers at the top of the standings at the moment. As Stenberg now goes to P2, that I wouldn't say are out of position, but they are definitely threatening the core establishment at the top of the standings at the moment.
Yeah, Kiddis is the big surprise package I think this right now. It's only 2 tenths off of Noah Tara, and with where his pace has been, he's not been the slow driver, and him and Wayne combined, Wayne's Modern Motorsports have actually done a pretty good job as things sit in the team so far for a debutante team, but Kiddis has been doing a bit of double dipping and doing a bit of extra experience in the Dev Series the last couple of rounds. So somebody doing practice in Dev Series, and I'm not saying that's a knock on the pace. We know what Anthony Green, we know what Rory Collins and the like are like. Rory's always rode him. I'll plumb into that anyway. But for him to be jumping up in what is 3rd and 2 tenths off of pole so far is pretty good. There are a few guys I would expect to see go above that.
Oh, look at this. Is Walker going to get a lap? He just gets to the line. So Kiddis' teammate Walker was the last man across the line with a second to go. So he timed that to perfection, getting across the line there. So the only driver... Oh, and he's just, I think, might have potentially lost a bit of the lap at the moment because he's 8th in the running order. So it's one of his lowest qualifying performances at the moment. And one of the drivers that unfortunately missed out getting to the line was one of the PBF Race Engineering Camaros. I couldn't quite work out whether it was Foley or Boak. As an improvement for Aidan Williams, he goes up to 9th. Luke Newing, I think, is that Newing behind him? Yes, it is, and he stays 4th. Where is he on the list? Yep, that is, and he stays 4th. Yep, and Kiddis is going to pull over. He's not improving, so he's going to stay 3rd, and Walker's bailed. So Walker's bailed on his lap, and he has actually lost 2 positions in that whole charade as well. So Green jumped up to 6th, that pushed Walker down to 9th, and then Igmanis jumped up to be 8th, and that pushed Walker down to 10th. So that's a big surprise there. With a few late changes and a few late stings in the tail, this man, though, has pole. Because Stenberg is in the lane, and he has pole by... He actually lowered the mark. He got down to a 6.42 at the moment there. So he actually has 0.16 on Kurt Stenberg. So we did say the pole time was going to be in the mid-6s, and he's got the job done. So well done, Noah Turra. First pole of the season.
Absolutely, yeah. Good to see him up the top end of the order, and he did drop down in the end just slightly, as I mentioned. Actually, well, no, he didn't actually.
No,
sorry, I stand corrected. And so to still hold 3rd for Kiddis is a solid run.
Yep.
Newing as well in 4th, although for Newing that's less of a surprise. Just looking quickly back through the running sheet, and he was a top 5 qualifier as well at the previous round at Barbagallo. So Newing becoming maybe a bit of a qualifying specialist, at least. He hasn't quite necessarily had the race pace, but qualifying has been right with him. And then, sitting in 5th, Tim Redmond, probably a little bit further down than you'd expect to be, but it's just because there's that many guys trying to fill that gap between him and the front runners. Anthony Green in 6th, who I mentioned earlier, someone in Dev Series who's really plying their trade in both series. Devonish in 7th, that's quite a way off, but that said, with Will's qualifying this year, that's probably one of his better performances.
It's not terrible for Devonish. I think he has had
terrible.
He's had some good runs, and
Yeah.
probably I think there's been a couple of occasions where he's been outside the 10, but more often than not inside the 10.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's all. Yeah, that was a pretty good run for the guys, and then. So Devonish 7th, Tomo in 8th. So actually, both the CRE engineering cars sharing the 4th row. So that's actually a really good effort from Tomo in qualifying. Probably one of his better runs this season. Williams in 9th, and he's been on and off this year, but good to see him popping in. And I suppose the big surprise of that 10 is Walker in 10th, given that he's been the lead driver in qualifying for Wentworth Motorsports this entire season. I think it's not that we're doing the F1, beat your teammate qualifying stats, but it would be the first time that Alex Kiddis is going to own that stat against Walker.
That's right. So, 4 race wins on the season for Walker, and, along with that, 4 other podium finishes as well out of the 12 races so far. And, I haven't got the qualifying stats in front of me here, but from my memory, he's been top 5 qualifying every round so far. So, his worst performance, I would say, of the season qualifying-wise. But, he won't be having too much of a concern about that. He's definitely got good race pace. We've seen that his race pace has been exceptionally strong so far this season. And with that segue, it's time to have a look at where the point standings are coming into tonight. So 5 rounds down, as we said, the opening 12 races across the first 5 rounds of the season. It's actually a 24 race season, so we are officially up and over halfway after Barbagallo. And that's the standings there. So Kurt Stenberg with a nice little advantage at the moment. For some reason, the gap calculation on the point standing sheet isn't actually giving it to me in numbers, but you can see there it's about 178 points, if my math is correct. My mental math is correct there, over Will Devonish, who moved up into 2nd spot, just ahead of Walker. So that's still very much a tight battle for 2nd and 3rd overall. And don't discount Noah Turra, because he's on the pole tonight now for the first race, and he is the 4th driver that has cracked 1,000 points for the season. Tim Redmond, he's still very much in the frame for a good result this season with plenty of time still to go, along with Anthony Green. But then there's a fair old gap back to the next group, as you said. Lewis Wedding, who's done a fair bit of substitution driving this year in the absence of Luke Rosella, and been doing a good job at it as well along the way. He's been playing a very, very smart game in a lot of races. And then you've got Brenton Foley, Brendan Ross and Daniel Cox, who make up the top 10. And it starts to get pretty tight when we head into the back half of the top standings. So 11 through 20 here, you can see very, very close on a couple of occasions. Burko, who's missing tonight, just ahead of Lockie Lock. You got Collins and Higginson and Rutledge, all separated by 6 points there in the middle of the table. And even Aidan Williams and Luke Newing, who's only been in the series for a couple of rounds now, already starting to move his way up the board quite quickly. And even there you can see Curtis Egmanis got a bit of his fight on his hands against Ryan Smith. And that's actually another fairly good segue, Rody, because if I flip over the page here to the team standings, you can see there's been a change at the top. And it's a change at the top only by 6 points. But after Barbagallo, Sideways Esport Light have overtaken CRE Engineering for top of the pops at the halfway stage of the team's championship. And that's purely because their combined race results, while Will Devonish has been sort of, top 5, top 6 on most occasions, Egmanis has been struggling a little bit through a couple of rounds. And those points that have been getting dropped, unfortunately, meaning that there's been a change in the point standings. And the big catalyst for him was, if I look at Egmanis, he's had a second place finish on the season. There's only been one. There's been 2 DNFs, one of them at Barbagallo, which was obviously very costly. But I look at it here, there's been 4 finishes out of the 12 races outside the top 20 for Egmanis. And for a former team's championship pairing from 2 years ago, to be looking to get back to the top, that hurts.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's one of those things where, at least as the team's running have been going so far, and as the season goes on, it's probably going to see a slight reversal from where we're currently sitting. For CRE, they've both made it every round, and so there's never been any opportunity to have a fill-in driver. But that's meant they've had to wear some of the performances. For example, there was a DNF at the last round for Termo Race number 1, so that was a big fat 0. They got them nowhere. And some of those performances you mentioned. Whereas SCS Light have had the advantage of having across the season so far 2 fill-in drivers. Granted, one of them is Luke Newing, is now in the season or the series full time, so he's not available to them anymore. But their alternative driver, or the second driver they've had in Brandon Dostal, is now available. He was jumped in the car last round, and I believe he was on the cars to jump in somewhere this round. It just didn't quite play out for him. But there's that's sort of what's kept them in the order, is even though they've had drivers out, nominally that's actually, on the face of it, you'd go, Anthony Green tied in with Dev Series. Sorry, when I said Dev Series, I mean the actual IRL Dev Series. It wouldn't seem too much, but from my actual math, it's been Rory Collins we've seen less of so far this year.
Mm-hmm.
But it's what's kept them in the hunt, is having Anthony Green picking up a solid haul of points, having Rory pop up when he can, and when he can't, having the likes of Luke Newing, who we've already seen his pace, we know what he's done in qualifying the last 2 rounds, and Brandon Dostal, who's coming off Dev Series, hasn't had a lot of seat time in Supercars, but he's had a lot of time in Dev Series. He's currently up the top of the points there as well. More importantly, he's had the fire burning since the start of the year to drive these cars. That he's very much been, he's putting the effort in where possible. And that's what's keeping them at the pointy end. But the pointy end is only by 6 points.
Yes.
So all it takes is a good round for CRE in the back to the front, or a bad round, or an opportunity where they can't fill in at SES Light, and it goes back the other way.
That's right. And the important part is, when we talk about point standings as well, these are all pre-drop round considerations as well. So you take something like Egmanis at his last round, he was 21st and a DNF. That's clearly at this stage going to be his drop round, just based on points. I'm just looking across the standings at the moment. I can't see any other options on the table for him. So we are not going to talk too much about where drivers are sitting points-wise, or teams are sitting points-wise with the drop round in play, probably until about round 10, which is the second last round of the season, because that's where we'll be starting to factor it in and starting to see where everybody sits, because that's where you're going to start looking at it going, right, do I actually need to make sure I make these last couple of rounds to have a good finish to the season, or have I got enough points in the bank to be content with where I'm going to finish? Is the team's championship secure? It's good because it keeps it interesting until the end of the season. I think that's probably the the bit that I like the most about the drop round. Is keeps everybody on their toes. People have got to plan a little bit more throughout the season just to make sure that they can actually get to the finish line of the season and still have enough points in the bank to be in a situation where they can be competitive, or at least feel like they've got a chance of, moving up the order, because they can do the math and go, well, hang on a minute, such and such is going to have this drop round comes into play. This is my drop round. That puts me a bit closer. If I can, have a good result at that track, I'll be in with a shot type thing. So that's how the math, I guess, is spun when it comes to the drop rounds. So let's have a look now. Cars are starting to form up for the first race of the day. Well, actually, first race of the evening for us here on the east coast of Australia. Be daytime somewhere else in the world, probably over in continental Europe at the moment. And I know we've got a few drivers that are keeping an eye out and things over there, so it's good to have you aboard. And 27 drivers will be taking to the grid for this one. So ready, the grid will start to roll fairly shortly. It looks like we've got everybody on track. So who are the 27 drivers tackling the race tonight?
Alrighty, so starting from pole is Noah Tara. Really good performance for Noah. It's his first pole for the year. He was kept honest there by the second place runner in Kurt Stenberg. It's one of the first times, and I think the first time he's been off the podium, and it isn't been by the result of Wayne Walker, if my math is correct. So, but he's still in a good position to go from here. Third is Alex Kiddis. He's definitely one in a really good spot. Hopefully he can capitalise on this and get himself up to the end of the field, with Luke Ewing alongside him in fourth. Also good performance from Luke Ewing. We've seen those for him the last 2 rounds as well. Fifth is Tim Redmond, and really good performance from Timmy as well to out-qualify some of the guys he's usually battling with Anthony Green in 6th place, just quietly in 6th place, hovering along there. Seventh is Will Devonish. He's the first of the Indigenous round liveries on the grid in the order of things. Alongside him is Curtis Ekmanis, his teammate, also running an Indigenous themed livery tonight. Ninth is Aidan Williams for Williams Racing. Good to see him back out on the grid again with a strong qualifying performance, with Wayne Walker back there in 10th. A little bit deep from where we're used to seeing him, but he'll work his way back up through the field. 11th is Brandon Ross, who we'd expect to see it all tonight, so good to see Rossi's on the grid for BWD Mixed Sim Sports, with Daniel Cox in 12th, one of the 2 Sarah Anson cars that are running Indigenous themes again this year, with Ryan Smith in 13th, the SES Dark car, but running that light livery he ran in New Zealand, with Luke Speck in 14th for SES Satellite Racing. And at Grossel's back on the grid for PBF Renstall Team Blackshaws, I've looked at that entirely, with Bailey Hall in 16th for the Warning Racing Team. They should have 2 cars here tonight from memory, and they do, because alongside him, or just behind him, will be his teammate Darren Logan in 17th. 18th is Phil Boak, one of the 2 PBF Race Engineering Camaros on the grid tonight, with his teammate alongside him, or just back from him, in 19th. 20th is Lockie Lock for Amped Up CRE Racing. Very much a sort of McLaren livery going on there for the 237, with Rory Collins in 21st, Cam Rutledge in 22nd, Darryl Callahan filling in for Ben Hall in 23rd, Steve Warwick in 24th, Nathan Higginson 25th, Lockie Burke in 26th, and Pete Thrower off the back of the grid due to dropping out from qualifying in 27th.
There we go. That's the grid. Just waiting on a few drivers to get into position. So there was only one that needed to be reset, and here we go. This is the sprint race. It's race 13 of the Supercars Championship for the year, and off we go. And check out the reaction time for Stenberg. Great reaction time from what is typically that part of the racing line. No, there's a safety car already. Look in the background. There's an absolute logjam. What on earth is going on here? Somebody must have stalled. There's a car on its lid. It's Ryan Smith. And there's, I think it's Darren Lockman in the fence, and there's a safety car straight away. So that unfortunately puts a dampener on things. It does mean that Stenberg did get to the lead of the race before the safety car came out. He got the jump off the line. That is legitimate. So he is the race leader ahead of Noah Tara. What on earth went on at the start of that race?
I think you're going to want to go back and have a look at Alex Kiddis, because it looks like he's been snookered. I'm going to guess either a stall or he just didn't go at all.
Yeah, well, we're going to see if we can pick up the replay of what went on there, because something is, there's something quite nasty and quite major has gone on there. And as you said, Roddy, I'm going to see if I can go back and find what on earth has happened. It does look like Alex Kiddis may have been the cork that popped at that particular stage. So just waiting to see if I can actually get a visual on Kiddis on the replay while we wait for things to go around. We do have the replay ready, so let's actually go to that now. And we will bring it up for you because this doesn't look good. From where we're sitting here. So Kiddis there, second row of the grid, the blue and black, or the highlight blue and black Mustang. So this is the race start, and just waiting for things to get underway. And yeah, absolutely, slow away, got tagged by Redmond, who picked the wrong side, and then stacks on the mill in the middle. Both the Wayne's World Motorsport cars involved. That is an absolute mess. That is an absolute mess. So there's a lot that went on there. Let's just roll it back and we'll see if we can get a bit more of a feedback on this. So here's the replay here. So you can see here, at this point, Kiddis is slow away. And then Redmond tries for the gap and just can't react fast enough. Just guessed the wrong side, I think, more importantly. Thought that Kiddis was going to go to the right. Bit of accidental contact, slow away, and straight into the path of Egmanis, who grabs him. Pinballs back into Walker, and who's also caught in here? Cox caught in it, Smith caught in it, Luke Speck, Bailey Hall, who's that? That's Phil Boat caught in there as well. Foley somehow escapes. Both the PBF Redstore cars are in there, and there's probably, oh God, I'm just trying to work out how many cars.
There's half the grid.
There's probably at least a dozen cars that are caught up in that. So that's that. I wouldn't say it's a new record. But I think that's Darren Loughlin, because I think he might be out of this race.
Yeah, he is. I think Loughlin, probably from the point of view of the it's a new record probably for the most cars we've seen in a crash, or we're getting pretty close.
There's actually some cars that are in the pits.
For Darren Loughlin, his earliest retirement we've seen, his engine went before he crossed the start-finish line. So that's the earliest retirement that I think we have seen and probably ever will see from an ASR race. But the only thing I would think, looking at that one, is that that's really unfortunate with it is, but there was one issue we've had with this track that we haven't been able to fix in the last 2 years, and it's we can't get sound from the start lights. And looking at that for Kiddis, it looked like a very clear missed start, and he's realised, dumped the clutch on the panic to get out of there, and it's just sat there and spun the wheels. He looks like he might have been on the hard tyre as well, potentially, which would amplify that massively. But he's just been able to go nowhere. Timmy's tried to get out of the way, but just doesn't have the space, and it's just checked up the start-finish line, and it's all gone from there.
And you know what the sad part of this equation is as well, Rody? That's probably going to be deemed a racing incident.
Yes.
To me, that is going to be deemed a racing incident, because that start line incidents usually are, as we've got Kiddis leaving the lane now, and Locke as well, and a few drivers trying to unlap themselves. But yes, the sad part is those things happen, right? That's not intentional. You're sitting there as a racing driver. We saw this last season, I think it was, or the other season, especially at the Bend in real life with who was it? Andre Heimgartner and Thomas Randall was the incident, right? You stall on the grid, you've got cars going past. Cars have got to make a split-second decision. The cars behind Randall at that point in time, they made a decent call, but the cars behind were blindsided. That's sort of what Tim's situation was. He just had to guess. He took a guess that, okay, I'll go to the left because it looks like he's got, at the split second that Alex was there, it looked like he might have gone to the right, and there was just fractionally not enough room. So it happens, and I don't think anything's going to come from that. There are plenty of drivers that have tried their best to stay on the lead lap and get around, but there's, I'm just trying to do the math now, there's half a dozen drivers already one lap down. 2 retirements, unfortunately. So Darren Loughlin with a blown engine. Peter Thrower is the other one who was actually last on the running order, and I think he must have had some sort of another issue with that.
Yeah, he sped straight from the front straight, so he let another computer reach the hiccup, which is really unfortunate with him. That's 2 so far tonight, based on just dropping out of qualifying right as it started, and then dropping out the first couple of laps of race number 1. So that's watching me 0 points for him. And the other part you mentioned is guys trying to stay on the lead lap. What this means is there is, although it's just done its best to try and reduce itself, there is a healthy chunk of cars between Luke Ewing in 3rd place and between Anthony Green in 4th place. There was Daniel Cox in that train as well, but he decided to go to the pit lane to get himself to the back of the train, but Phil Boak, Steve Warwick in 20th and 21st. Then we go back to Wayne Walker in 22nd. He's back in between Darryl Callahan and Bailey Hall, with Ryan Smith in there as well in 23rd. As Kidder's then in the back of the train, or back of the train, he was for a time there. He's in 24th between Locke in 18th and Nick Martis in 19th, and then Daniel Cox back there in 25th. He's actually off the back of the train itself, and he's the last car in the race currently.
Yeah, so there's a bit of lap traffic in the way here. That'll now the important thing for them is they've been through the lane and stopped. So if they've got tyres and they can clear away and pass some of these cars and get going, they are more than welcome to do so. But the important thing is they do need to get a wriggle on. If they continue to get the blue flags, they're going to be obliged to go to move out of the way. Now, the bit of this equation that we need to look at now is anybody who started on the soft tyre just got a massive free kick, right? They just got an absolute massive free kick in terms of how long the lifespan of that tyre is now going to last. We saw in development series that you could get about 20 laps out of a soft tyre with some safety car help. This race is 18, so you're going to have plenty of tread on that soft rubber if you have picked it. But looking up and down the field, I can see that a lot of drivers have gone for the harder compound already, just on the odd chance that the race did go green flag all the way, which is clearly now not the case. And we can see a few drivers now starting to weave their tyres and get everybody, get themselves back into some sort of operating temperature before we go back. And I assume that means we're going back to a restart here in the next few minutes.
We should be pretty close to it. Yeah, logically, of course, all the cars that have been through the pits, so Phil Boak and back essentially, are up there on the soft tyre. There are a few in the field otherwise on the soft tyre. Curtis Martin was one of them. He was involved in that incident. I don't think he actually did hit. I don't know. I actually don't think he did, but he definitely was involved in the incident. So he's out there on the softs. Locke's out there on the hard, so he's going to get swallowed up. Well, yes and no, because all the cars behind him in position, one are actually a lap ahead of him functionally, so he's safe. But yeah, there's a few guys now out there on the hard that could potentially find themselves as a victim at some point in this race.
Here we go. Looks like we are going back to a green flag situation. Kurt Stenberg doing a really good job here of holding up the train, letting the safety car get back into pit lane. He knows the rules and he knows them very, very well. And safety car now going through the last corner. It does slow up a little bit and get into the lane. It's given a little bit of, need to probably give a little bit more room than that, but we did have a few drivers that got penalised in the development series race for being ahead of the safety car by the time they got to the control line. See Steve Warwick has pulled over to the side of the track there just to let some lap traffic through, and we are back to green flag racing here, Rhodey, and I think it looks like that Warwick might have been the only one to actually grab a penalty there, but it will be cleared.
Yep, Warwick and Stenberg both picked up penalties there, but importantly, yep, that was a clean start. Get a bit of a shuffle in the back of the field, and already seeing some of the drivers who were a lap down to get themselves out of the train. So what that does mean is now unobstructed, we've got Kurt Stenberg leading away from Noah Matara and Ludo Ewing. Then a bit of a gap back to Anthony Green, who's then leading the train with Tim Redmond, Will Devonish, Brendan Ross, Aidan Williams, and Leonard Grossel. But there is still there's a big long train that goes right back to about 18th or 19th.
Yes, here is that next train of cars. So the top three kicked away. Here's Green with Redmond right behind him and Devonish behind there. So there's still a bit of time and laps to play out here. Redmond looking a bit menacing, but Green taking the defensive line into, I think that's turn 10 at the top of the hill there. Then all these little turns, they're almost inconsequential corners, aren't they, Rhodey? Because they come thick and fast and they're just little kinks in the road. So I don't know why they've been given corner numbers over the course of time, but officially for the record, they are turns. And off they go now onto lap 7 of 18. So half distance, not too far away. Here comes Redmond down the inside at turn number 1. Green has to leave a bit of room. That's actually going to make Anthony go a bit wide, and that's an easy pass for the Beyond Racing Mustang at the end of the day. Nice job.
Yeah, everyone gave a bit more room than he really had to there, Anthony. But
likewise up the front here, Rhodey. Up the front here, sorry. Noah Tara had a sneaky look at Kurt Stenberg at turn 5. So Tara, the pole sitter, looking fairly racy now as well.
Absolutely, yeah, no, it's just, with where Green was at, he was kind of forced out wide. But yeah, a bit of contact actually between the race leader and the car in second place. So Tara looking very racy indeed, and perhaps Stenberg either fuel or tyre constricted, or maybe just not feeling as at home as he'd like to be right now. But Tara, after seeing the early pace in practice and the strong pace in qualifying, is setting some good pace here as well in the race and is threatening that number 47 tomorrow.
And you've got Newing just tucked in behind there as well. Just waiting for this to boil over, just waiting to see what happens here in the next few moments or so as we go down to the line. And fastest lap of the race for Tara, then a fastest lap of the race for Newing, then a fastest lap of the race for Redmond. So changing hands fairly quickly here. Fastest lap now down to a 108.19 in the hands of Redmond. So he's starting to hone in on the back of this little group as well. Then back again to that group with Green, who's very much the champagne cork at the moment. Devonish applying the pressure. Likewise, Grossel applying the pressure to Aidan Williams right behind them as well. So plenty of action here. Whoop, there goes Leonard, a bit wide. Oh, and Ross. What did Ross get collected on the way through? Because
sounds like something happened there. Definitely heard contact.
Yeah, so there was a bit of a situation for Brendan Ross. I think coming through turn 5. We'll go and grab that on the old Paint Doctor replay and have a look at this and see what comes up here. So here he is. Here he is coming up towards turn number 5. Did he do this on his own, or was he helped by his fellow admin Foley? Oh, yep, compression lock, and oh, yep, just collected by Foley, and it was the one with Luke Speck. I thought he might have been collected by Speck. In fact, he was collected by Foley, but it wasn't all that serious at the end of the day.
No, just a slight spin for Ross with compression, as you mentioned. It actually was the one that caused the slide for Russell, and then, yeah, Foley right at the end there, so Foley had no way getting out of that one. So, minimal time loss for both PBF drivers and a small couple of seconds dropped by Ross there.
Well, he's actually possibly going to lose another one here. He's a bit wide at turn 1, and Higginson right on his rear now. There's Burke in there too, and the second of the SES cars in the queue there behind, which that's a car that's, I think it's Ryan Smith, is a lap down, I believe. Yes, it is, and yeah, he's trying to get himself back up through the field, so he's going to be pretty careful there, along with Higginson and Lockie Burke. And Devonish is now past Anthony Green while we were looking at the replay there as well. So that moves him up into position number 5. So what of all the drivers that ended up one lap down out of all of that? So both the Wayne's World Motorsport Mustangs went a lap down. Ryan Smith, we mentioned, Phil Boak, Daniel Cox and Steve Warwick are the ones that all went one lap down as a new fastest lap for Redmond. Grossel now the fastest lap, and he got a really big tow in behind, I think it was Aidan Williams there who we were watching. Devonish coming down the front straight back to this little group of cars as well. Smith still trying to pick his way through. Compression lock and some lock brakes for Ross, and there goes Higginson and possibly Burke as well, although Ross will argue the point now, heading up the hill towards the turn 5 pressure point, and he holds Burke out for the moment as he tries to get back to the rear bumper of Higginson.
Yeah, and the troubling bit for this is that Smith's got the pace to play with these guys. He's got the pace to really pull ahead of these guys the way they're racing at the moment, but they've got no real need to, as we've seen a bit of contact there with Burke, they've got no real need to leave him any space more than they're obliged to save themselves. Bit of contact there again for Burke, and that's just him trying to get back off the curb. They're not obliged to leave him any space. It's his job to get past them and do so cleanly, and they're too busy racing each other to really even want to leave a room for him, because leaving room for him leaves room for the cars they're racing.
Here we go.
By Redmond again into the 7s now. But yeah, he's in a really tricky position. He's going to sit there and probably just burn up some tyres and get a bit of heat into the helmet.
There we go. Tara had some overlap on Stenberg heading down into turn number 1, and he leaves him barely the room on the exit of turn number 1. He's got that done. So the pole sitter goes back to the lead of this race. He had a good run out of the final corner, drives it straight defensively down the middle of the road into turn 5. That's Stenberg to go wide, so Newing's going to grab a spot here as well. Redmond might get one as well, and he does for the moment. But Stenberg's got the high line on the inside here at turn 6, but Redmond has the line for the next corner, which goes right. And they'll side-by-side argue it through 7. And now I think Stenberg might be able to just hold Redmond wide here up to turn 10. And Redmond does use the wise judgment there and concede. But good effort, good bit of challenge there. And the defensive hold from Noah Tara, I think, probably caught Stenberg. I suppose, there's a bit of, there's a mirror goes flying off the Lifeblood Mustang from Will Devenish as they exited the final corner as he was down the inside of Redmond. Now, these two have got a small amount of history this year already, Rhodey. There's been a couple of situations where the stewards have had to step in after a race is over. Let's see how things go here as Devenish pulls down the inside and looks all right there. Now, Redmond, is he on the soft tyre there, Rhodey?
I do believe he is. He'd be the only one of this top 5 to be on that soft tyre. So
Oops.
He's got an advantage there.
And there he is, and that's where the advantage comes in if he is on the soft tyre under braking.
Yeah, but the challenge for him is that he's going to be the one at risk of potentially, still with a safety car, still potentially putting his tyres at risk at the end of this one. So he's going to balance the need to keep with and battle with these top runners, but also make sure his tyres last, because Anthony Green's a while back, but if your tyres start to go, that gap is not nearly big enough.
Nope, certainly is not. So Devenish up to 4th, Redmond back to 5th. The race leader has popped down to 3rd, so Tara leads this one with Luke Newing right on his hammer. And back a bit further in the field, Cam Rutledge, one of the drivers with the Indigenous livery tonight, trying to head off Rory Collins there with Daniel Cox, who's a lap down in this piece as well. So Rutledge in 17th and Cox 25th, and behind them I think it is Lockie Locke, who's 19th, and he's actually on the lead lap as well. He's the last car on the lead lap in that little group going through the shot there. So a bit of a mixture here. I don't think he'll be too concerned about sitting behind Daniel Cox at the moment, although he's going to pop out from behind the Camaro back of shot there, but not close enough to get down the inside. Neither for Collins as well, who I don't think has turned too many laps this week in Supercars practice. Again, as you mentioned earlier, he was originally not slated to be here tonight. Brandon Dostin was on standby, and then change of circumstances, and Collins is back in.
Yeah, so a little bit of a lack of practice there for Rory, but also the other thing with the guys and Lockhart's just gone past. We're going to see this for the last few laps of this race. There are a few of the little battle packs where there's drivers, like we were looking at earlier, with yellow flag out.
Yeah, it's a localised yellow, and I fear it's somebody that's off at this part of the circuit here, and just trying to work out who that actually may have been.
Lockie Burke.
Ah, yes, we have got Lockie Burke, who's having a bit of a sideways moment here at coming down the hill. I'd seen him having a moment, so the old Paint Doctor replay normally reveals what goes on here. And who's behind that? Behind him is Bailey Hall in behind. And, it's a bit of an awkward moment for Burke. And did he get the fence? He did. He got the fence there as well. So, loss of control off the road. And it doesn't look like there's too much damage. And when I saw him coming back onto the circuit, he was doing that. He was leaving a big cloud of smoke.
Yeah, so the other train, which is the train he was a part of, was the other one I was thinking of.
He's actually retired.
Yeah, so the one I was thinking of was with Brendan Ross and Nathan Dingerson, where they're in their own little battle, and they have been for the last little while. But they're also then in interplay with the battle that is Wayne Walker and I believe there's one of the SES cars up as well.
No, it's Igmanis. Yeah. Igmanis is the one that's gone through, the one you were probably thinking of, Rhodey, because you had Ryan Smith, who's unlapped himself from this group.
Ryan Smith was what I was thinking of. But yeah, there's those guys as well that will be fighting in that little battle pack with each other. But you're going to have different battles on different laps, all having to try and interplay and mingle with each other, where the guys are lap down should be the ones getting out of the way, but they're normally the ones in this case on the fresher tyres, so they're not going to really want to do that.
No.
And this is where some of the curious interplay comes in at the back of this race.
Yeah. So Igmanis is a lead lap. We've got another yellow flag up here at turn 5. And somebody off the road. Oh, it's Devenish. Devenish, a teammate, around. So there he is, marooned on the inside. He's waiting for a gap. And, that is one of the most awkward rejoins I think I've seen all season. And
yeah, he was trying to do what he could to minimise his loss, but he's basically come out right in front of Callahan there. Probably would have been in communication. They are in the same ultimate big team banner, but yeah, that was very awkward indeed. And now he's trying to get back past Kiddis, who's going to have much better tyres on than him at this point. And so
here we go. Well, he's dropped it on his own. He has dropped that on his own. That is a very rare mistake. You don't see too many of them. And then, he got to the point of going, okay, I need to hold here and wait for the gap. And then he tried to gas it up and waiting for it. and then he picked his moment to go, and yeah, the car just didn't want to rotate fast enough. And evasive action there. Who was that in the Ben Hall car? Darryl Callahan. Yeah, so good evasive action there, well avoided. But yeah, that will catch the ire of the stewards, I think, for a potential unsafe re-entry. It'll be a minor penalty. It won't be anything too heavy. It's a non-contact situation, but drivers know the rules. They're supposed to come back on parallel to the circuit if possible, and if it's not possible, they've got to wait for the gap. There definitely wasn't a gap there.
Absolutely, yeah. So what that has done is it's dropped Will out of the 10, and it's opened up a little bit as well. For the moment, he's only got 2 laps to get back into it. Quickest lap there from Noah Turra as well, so he's beating down what Redmond had been working on.
Yep.
Redmond, I was just looking at as well, he's actually dropped quite a bit back off that train, off the leaders, and what my guess is
soft tyres crying enough.
Soft tyres are giving up, so he's had to back off a little bit. He is now only 2 seconds off the train behind now, but that train behind is its only battle pack.
And there goes Green.
Wide trying to defend from Grossel, and lets him and Williams through in the process.
Yep, so that's a mistake, and that's pressure. So that's good pressure from Grossel and for Aidan Williams. They forced the mistake from the number 10 Autobahn entry, and he puts himself down to 7th. Now, Brent Foley is actually not too far off his hammer, so Green's got to keep his wits about him here, or he might drop another spot in the process. So few changes late in the game here. This is probably one of Grossel's best finishes, I think, possibly coming up, Rody, if he can keep this one together. Currently P5 on the road, so I can't recall him having a higher finish than that. But 1 lap to go now as the race leader comes across the line, and he's got a healthy margin. Noah Turra's got a 2.7 second margin at the moment, Rody. Now, I know he's been hunting for a win. Noah has had, I think, a win handed to him. I think it might have been last year at one of the rounds. I'm just going back to have a look at the standings here, because he was in a podium position at one stage, I think, and yes, it was at Symonds Plains, where he actually got the win given to him after there was a post-race penalty applied. Now, for him, that's not good enough. For him, he wants an outright victory. He doesn't want to have it handed to him on a platter after the fact. He's only got about 6 or 7 corners to go, and this officially, for him, is going to be his first win in ASR Supercars competition. It's been about 3 years or 4 years or so since he upped himself to the main game from the development series. It's here. The moment has arrived. Noah Turra, you are now officially an ASR Supercars winner. Well done.
Absolutely, really good result there for Noah Turra by about 3 seconds in the end over Luke
Newey.
Second. Also Newey's
Great
best
drive
run as well, so good to see him up there as well. Stenberg back in 3rd. It's odd that you're putting Stenberg back in 3rd, but yeah, it's just not quite the speed of the 2 cars in front of him, but he's able to hold it off very nicely from 4th place, and Tim Redmond, who in turn got those softs to the end, which was what kept him in front of what ended up being Aidan Williams, who put a pass on Leonard Grossel towards the end there. Grossel still home in 6th, but still a really good run for him. Green home in 7th, bowling it wide cost him at the end there, but didn't quite cost him so much that he would have lost out to Foley, who was one of the few lucky survivors of that start line incident, that he managed to finish in 8th. Luke Speck home in 9th, but he's back in the pits already, and finishing out in the top 10, Koenigsegg Marnus being the only one of the CRE Engineering Mustangs and the lead CRE Engineering Mustang in the top 10.
Yeah, and he was caught up in that early incident, I think, as well, and
he was.
Managed to, I guess, got lucky with that. Didn't have too much damage from it because he was able to stick into the top 10 there. If Devonish had finished a bit up in the point standings, that actually would have been a solid haul for them, because they've only SES Team Light have only got 1 car here tonight, so that's they haven't punished them, because the only car that was here from the Light squad, I believe, is I think it's Anthony Green. I think is the only one here tonight. I haven't seen.
Anthony Green and Rory Collins are here. They're the dark cars with the light liveries.
Yep.
And then the other light car is the actual light car, which is Ryan Smith.
Sorry, there you go. Dane Liccardo's missing tonight. So,
yes.
So Marnus was 10th. Higginson, good result for him, just outside the top 10 in 11th. So at the end of the day, he was about 6 seconds away from a 10th finish, and Devonish recovered to 12th. So that's that one will sting a little bit. The mistakes you make on your own are always the ones that make you feel the worst.
Absolutely, yeah. It's very easy when you've been had off to be able to point the blame, but when you've done it all by yourself, then yeah, there's no easy out from that situation.
No, there certainly isn't. So he finished in 12th, and then finishing up the field there, Bailey Hall 13th, Brennan Ross 14th, and Callahan 15th. And then the last of the lead lap runners was Lockie Lock, Rory Collins, and Cam Rutledge. They were the ones that finished, so up to 18th were classified on the lead lap. Ryan Smith for SES Team Light was a lap down, along with Wayne Walker, Alex Kiddis, Steve Warwick, Daniel Cox, and Philip Boak. I mean, importantly, they're bringing home points, but for them, caught up in a pretty major shunt at the beginning of that race through no fault of their own.
Absolutely.
Well,
points in now.
The interesting part of that one, I think, Rody, while you're keying up the points there, is out of qualifying, we did think that there might have been it was good to see a few drivers up the pointy end of the standings that hadn't been up there before. It gives them the opportunity to have a good crack at a good result, and, well, it proved absolutely right. It has shaken up the top end of the order a little bit.
Absolutely, yeah. A few guys that I haven't had to scroll down this far in a while to get some of these top 10 results in. And consequently, some of the guys who we used to see up the pointy end, not there either. So like Brennan Ross, for example, granted, it's 14th is about middle of the road for his performances, but again, with what we're used to seeing him, with where his pace is putting him, as a top 10 runner to be down in 14th, a little bit off the order. But yeah, some of the performances like Higginson up in 11th, just quietly running along there, quietly plugging along. Definitely, I don't think his best performance this year, but definitely up there, and it's just kept the race quiet, and that's really what did it for him. What was it? Bailey Hall up in 13th as well. He's had a bit of a rocky season. He's only make a few rounds, so that's a good run for him. But same thing for him, as such as Ross doesn't have his teammate here tonight, or either of his teammates. Bailey Hall had his teammate for all of about negative 20 meters of the race.
Yeah, didn't even get to the start-finish line, I think.
Yeah, well, yeah. So the engine, he rolled over the start-finish line backwards with no engine. So that was the extent of the race for Darren Loughlin. So hopefully, well, I think by default almost he can go a little longer in race 2. But that's gonna potentially throw some things into it all as well. But yeah, it's very, very topsy-turvy race. But you've got to be in it to win it, and or in the case of some of the guys, to finish first, well, it's the same thing. But yeah, those guys who were given the opportunity, they did their best they could with it. So that's right.
That's it. So that's the important thing. So as you key some of the points in, then we're going to get a few drivers, I guess, sorted out in the next couple of moments. So takeaways from that, Roadie. We've already spoken about, well, it's Noah Tara's first official win. There's definitely some drivers in there with some good points finishes. A few drivers that are going to rue some of their mistakes. And a couple of drivers that will consider themselves unlucky. Does that cover everything, or are there still a couple of things I think we missed out on there?
Pretty much covers it. Yeah, there's just a few guys that got really, like the biggest sort of hard luck threes. He recovered a little bit in the end, but Kiddis' pace in qualifying, I would have liked to see how that would have gone in the race, and just with how that start went for him, it just never had an opportunity of playing out at all, and that's really killed it for him. And unfortunately, Progressive Grid means he's going to start down the back with his teammate. Outside of that, there's not really, there's just some good little quiet runs. As I mentioned, Higginson in 11th, Spec quietly pottering along there in 9th. Foley somehow surviving all that. He started behind essentially the caution, behind the safety car, and managed to survive that. So that was a really good run for him as well. For Igmanis as well, who got a little bit of damage, but obviously not enough to pit. So that was luck more than a good strategy call in that one. But it's just a very much a race of everything that was laid out being thrown on its head. But the other thing, as I mentioned, is just going to set people up for race 2. It's a longer race, and perhaps for some of these guys that have sat down and done the big strategy plays, done the big strategy thoughts, with where Walker's been on pace, I wouldn't be surprised if he's done a bit of planning for how he wants the race to go. But that would have been provided on some capacity on him being up at the front. And for example, you can make a hard tie run work for good positions, but it's only if you're up towards the front of the order that you're not going to drop too far before everyone then comes and pits. But if you're down the back, the gains you can make are less. We saw this used myself as an example. I think it was Albert Park when I went and had it off in the first lap. I still committed to the hard strategy, but it was nowhere near as effective because I had to make up 20 seconds to see the next car in front of me. So same sort of thing with these guys is they're going to be pushed down the order. They've got a bit more work to do if they make the hard tyre work. Whereas the soft, I also got the balance then of, look, I'll do soft, but I was planning on running it, say, 102% of my race pace, 103% in the early laps, and then I was going to back it off somewhere in the middle. They can't do that anymore because 102 and 103% might be enough to hold yourself with the likes of Noah Tara, Luke Newing, Kurt Stenberg. Now from 19th and 20th, it's what's going to get you up to 15th. But you want to be in 5th, you want to be 3rd, you want to be 1st. So you've got to put more effort into the tyres now. You've got to chew them up more. And that potentially puts you in a position where either you're going to have to save some more tyre elsewhere or go from hoping for a safety car to essentially almost willing one into being to give you half a chance of your strategy playing out. So that's really what's going to influence race 2.
Yes, that certainly will. As warm-up has we've been rolled forward into the warm-up session now, there's definitely a few drivers that are going to take to the track and just cut a couple of laps. And in preparation, I guess, for the race that's about to come up, which is going to be 35 laps. So there's a fair old distance of running to get through. If for comparison's sake, development series on Friday night last week, 14 laps for race 1, 28 laps for race 2. So it was 40 kilometres for the first race and 80 kilometres for the second race. For Supercars, it's a little bit longer. It's 50 Ks and 100 Ks. So 18 laps for race 1, and it doesn't quite make it all the way around to being a duplication of laps in race number 2, but it's 35 gets us up and over the 100 kilometre mark. So that's how the running is determined. Of course, after this, there's been a little bit of a shift in the calendar. There have been a couple of date changes and two rounds have actually swapped places in the calendar if you haven't been keeping up with things. So we originally were going to be heading to the Gold Coast next, followed by Sydney Motorsport Park. They have now swapped. So the Sydney Motorsport Park round is going to be on, actually I've got to update the calendar here, it's going to be on the 19th of, actually I have updated the calendar actually. The development series round is on the 28th of June, the Supercars will be on the 5th of July. They are the next 2 rounds for those series, and then the Gold Coast rounds are going to be the 19th of July for the development series and the 26th of July for the Supercars. And then the big round after that will be the international round in August, which we are going to Long Beach, California for a pair of races each, and then we get into endurance season. So still plenty of time for Enduro Cup for those drivers that want to contest it, and that's going to be happening throughout September and October. So still a bit more to go for the start of the year. Development series have got 13 rounds, Supercars have 11. The only reason for that is the development series have their own single races at Sandown and at Bathurst, whereas the Supercars do not. So this year, unlike last year, the Supercars Championship does not include the Enduros. That was a bit of a one-off last year, Brody. It was a bit of an interesting dynamic too, because it meant that we ended up with some pairings of drivers that earned driver points, but then teams' cars earned different points as well with how things were organised. So that situation for this year has been put back to its original format that it's run for the last couple of seasons before that, which was different teams, different point structure, separate to the championship.
Yeah, and it allows for some guys to very much, very much to play some other. Well, one thing that it's allowed in the past, I think, is allowed some guys to experiment with, perhaps without advertising, so experimenting with future lineups for teams. I think one of the first times we saw. One of the first times we saw Daniel Cox involved with CRE was actually through an enduro pairing with, it might have been Cam Ruckman. That might have happened the year before he actually joined them full time. It would have been during his last year in the development series. A few other guys, though, sort of teams to play around some stuff. And also, it does more so than previous years. More so than last year. Last year, very much a focus that you'd be trying to throw guys into your team cars that were going to be of a decent pace, of a pace where they were going to be able to come home and score some points for you. Whereas years prior to that, it allowed you to open up the options and, bring in maybe some of the guys towards the back of Super 2, or more importantly, bring in some of the guys that were more of a wild card, some of the international drivers where maybe their pace isn't so much the concern or the consistency. It's really just a gamble of is their net going to survive? Is there going to be something in the thousands of miles between our server and their computer that's going to throw a hissing fit? So, for example, we've had the likes of up until last year, and it wasn't necessarily tied into last year, it's just how things played out. The last couple of years, we've had Brad Severs on the grid, and he's racing out of Indianapolis in the United States. We've had a couple of years ago back, and we had Bridget Mishra on the grid running out of Singapore. We've had Leonard on the grid running through Enduro Cup prior to this, obviously running out of Germany, and Stuart Nickel also is on the is looking at least running this year. I think I'm not sure actually. I haven't registered yet, but my understanding of things, Stuart and Leonard are looking to him out for Enduro Cup, so he'll be running out of England. It allows the opportunity for some of these guys to float in. A few other guys I know that have interest, or at least express interest in me. I'm trying to wrangle a few teams together as well. Of guys from the US. I think one or two of them are based out of England. That are all separate teams off in iRacing, and that are all looking at coming over for this sort of stuff. And it opens up that opportunity because there's no expectation of you're coming into a predetermined team. They've got team championship focus on the line. They've got driver championship focus on the line. You can DNF both races of this year's Enduro Cup. Not that you ever want to, and I can say that, having been in a position with a team where I don't think finished any of the races 2 years prior. But you can do that, and it's, as long as you had fun with your racing, that's it. There's no weight of team championship, drivers championship being affected by it. It's just you're going out there and having some fun. And also with the length of races we're throwing at drivers this year, it very much gives you, it's very much, I suppose, it is still part of the calendar, but it gives you an opportunity to very much mentally separate it from the rest of the season, which is good because it's going to be a hard slog for drivers this year.
Yes, no, I agree. It will be, because it is going up to a 500 for the Sandown and a 1,000 for Bathurst. So there's still a few, I think a few reservations from a few drivers about doubling the Bathurst distance, because we've done a Sandown 400 before, but not the 500. So that's not too much of an extension. But yeah, doubling the original, the hallmark of the Bathurst 500 we've had for the last couple of seasons to a 1,000. A few people have sort of got a few jangling nerves about it. Now, the important thing with the Enduro Cup this year is the edict has come down tonight that if the grid does not get to a certain size, it will not be broadcast. And I think we're at about 12 now, and I think we're looking to get to a minimum of 16 or 17 before we'll commit to broadcasting it. So it will run in any case, regardless of how many entries there are. But for a broadcast point of view, only if the minimum numbers are met, I guess it will be can it be justified, because it is quite a lot of effort to put together the broadcast packages and things to make it work. So we're looking forward to hopefully getting enough numbers to make that happen and bringing that to you in September and, of course, October for the 1,000. And there was a couple of changes we did have to make during the season, and only from the point of view that Supercars went and changed their own calendars around to suit their own self-interests, shall we say, and we had to make a couple of concessions along the way to accommodate that. So instead, originally we picked a date that wasn't the Sandown 500 date, then they moved their calendar to what is now the Sandown 500, which upset us, so we had to move our calendar again. That's just unfortunately how that ended up. You can see there's a few drivers sort of just up the back of the field at the moment, just getting themselves together and waiting on a few drivers. Now we are going to be missing 2 drivers for this one. I'm told that Brendan Ross is unfortunately not going to start this one. He was originally, I think, slated for 14th, and Peter Thrower was originally 26th because he was one of the early retirements from the last race. They won't be starting this one. So we're down to 25 runners, which is still a good field. Still been some good racing. And the field will roll away for race number 2, the longer distance race, with Noah Turra off the pole, heading the field, Luke Newing alongside. This will be Newing's first front row start in his very short time in ASR. Originally was only going to do about 3 or 4 rounds this year, and after his first 2 decided he wanted to do it full time, and here he is, and up now fighting for podiums, which is good to see. Kurt Stenberg on row 2 along with Tim Redmond. I think Roddy's probably busy running through checking to see if anybody's starting on soft tyre, so we'll get his verdict on some things in a little bit. Aidan Williams, first or highest starting position for him in ASR Supercars this season, in 5th alongside Leonard Grossel. So good couple of hard charges there, hopefully going to throw the gauntlet down to the leading group in this race. Anthony Green and Brent Foley now separated by 8 tenths at the finish line in race 1. with Luke Speck. Another top 10 finish for him this season, with Kurt Stenberg taking over in the top 10 after Will Devenish's late race exit from the top 10 in a few moments ago, with Nathan Higginson and Devenish, pair of Mustangs, sharing row 6 on the grid. And we go back to Bailey Hall, P13, with Darryl Callahan in P14, Lockie Lock in 15th with Rory Collins in 16th, and then Cam Rutledge in 17th, and he was the last of the drivers that's in the running order that finished on the lead lap, that are left from race 1 last time out, with Ryan Smith, the first of those cars in race 1 that was a lap down, with Wayne Walker. Wayne with a bit of work to do now, coming through from 19th on the grid, along with his teammate Alex Kiddis. They both got some speed in the race, so we'll hopefully be able to see what's out. I can see it looks like these guys might have gone for a soft tyre strat, so we'll see how we go with that. Roddy will confirm in a moment. With the last 5 cars on the grid, Steve Warwick, Daniel Cox, Phil Boat from PBF Race Engineering, Lockie Burke, and Darren Lockman, who all got about 20 metres at the start of race number 1 before the engine blew. Roddy, whoops, there's a bit of an issue at the back there, and that's Lockie Burke. Yep. What was he doing? I think he was trying to warm the tyres up.
Warm the rears, yeah.
Trying to warm the rears, and got it sideways right in front of Lockman, so rather interesting point of view. And now what side's Burke meant to be starting on? He's meant to start on that side. Okay, so get themselves into position. And that's a rather, we haven't seen that before in ASR Supercars. An incident on the way to the grid.
Well, I wouldn't say we haven't seen it before in Supercars. It's been a while though, when normally it is Scott Murrell who's responsible for those, but he's one of the few not on the grid tonight because he's actually at the track this weekend running flagging. Now
there's someone is out of position at the moment. Oh, it was Will Devenish. Okay, so he was very noticeable. He might be in a bit of trouble for that, being a bit too far back in the box. Let's get going for race 14 of the championship, and away we go. And again, pole sitter slow off the dirty side of the grid, Newing on the clean side of the grid. The preferred racing line gets the whole shot down into turn number 1. What about Leonard Grossel splitting the middle, coming up to 4th place? He's going to have to fight off Tim Redmond here, and wide, Newing wide at the first corner, and Tara's going to get a free kick here. He's going to go back to the lead of the race.
Yeah, and what they've actually all done is that they've all shuffled Redmond out of position as well, with Grossel diving through, Stenberg having to fend him off. Stenberg down to the inside, is looking down the inside, has actually wandered wide, Newing as well. Yeah. Opened the door for Grossel, maybe 2 spots here down to the hairpin.
Yep. Wandered wide all in his own, Stenberg there, and Grossel very quickly cuts across to take the apex for turn 6. Stenberg gets a bit of a love tap from Foley as well at the hairpin, who's had a pretty decent start too. So a clean set of heels at the moment. Free kick for Noah Tara at turn 1. Foley now up to P2, up to P5. Redmond shuffled down a couple of spots at the start there, and a few spots gained as well, it looks like, by Egmanis. He's come up, I think, to 7th after starting 10th, so good start for him. And Aidan Williams losing 3 spots from 5th down to 8th, but clean so far on lap 1.
Yeah, it wouldn't come as any surprise to anyone that all the guys who made strong performances into the top 10, so Higginson as well up into 9th off the start, all the guys with really strong starts, all out there on the soft tyre.
Yep, there you go.
That
Tara!
Launch for them and a good run in the early laps, and Tara, who was clearing away.
Yep, he had he had a moment while we were on board looking at Grossel, who was thinking about having a lunge at Newing, but backed out of it, opted to fuel save, going down into turn 1, and up off in the distance, Tara running very wide, almost fully onto the grass at turn 1. Maybe he's gone into a fuel save strat as well. Foley now up to 4th, so he's gotten ahead of Stenberg. So has Stenberg gone into fuel conservation mode like we saw a lot of drivers do at Barbagallo, Brody? Because this is the thing, if we bring up our Pallet Control Solutions race facts, the note at the bottom there, but Perth all over again. This is very much going to be a lot of drivers very much thinking about fuel saving.
Absolutely, yeah, and yeah, we're seeing that, as I mentioned, the guys on the softs, they're not out there to fuel save, they're out there to stop somewhere in this race. They've locked that in, especially with their performance early on, and the fact they're charging through like they are. Stenberg is one, Newing is another, and Newing I'm not surprised with, given these teammates Luke Speck. And without giving away too many secrets on it, Speck's been my advisor on Brody. This is a good race to go hard no stop in Dev Series. So he's the one who's put in a lot of work generally on strategies. He wouldn't be surprised if he's been feeding that information to SES to SES Satellite Racing, to all the guys in that team chat, looking after them and getting them set. So Ewing is the quickest, or the front runner on those hard tyres, and he's probably very much being benefited a little bit by the guys that are passing. So Foley's just gone through, and Grossel's trying something similar. If he can run his own race, but use these guys as a bit of a break to cut through the air, he can save some fuel without losing nearly as much time. Whereas Stenberg, I think, very much is trying to fuel save and trying to get to the head of the queue, and he's going to suffer.
Yeah, he's driving to a number. He's down to 6th. Egmanis just went through and is attached now to the back of Grossel. We're watching that battle right now, actually, on screen now. Doing the numbers, the soft tyre runners. And I can see it. I could see just a few seconds ago. I was running through the field looking at the sidewalls. I could see it looks like Grossel's on the soft. It looks like Egmanis is on the soft as well. So, as you mentioned, those drivers that have opted for the soft tyre strategy are starting to pull away. They're starting to gap the field. They're starting to make their way through the field. I think Higginson, who's actually behind Stenberg on the road at the moment, might be another one that is on the soft tyre. But it's not making the inroads. So he's looking for a performance gain, but he will have to stop at some point. If you're on a soft tyre, you've got to be hoping for a safety car mid-race, probably around about lap 16 or 17 if you really want to get in and take another set of soft tyres and really try and get them through to the finish. Realistically, you need 2 safety cars to make the soft tyre last. We did see it took about 20 laps in Dev Series before the soft tyre really gave up, and that was with 4 laps of safety cars. So you do need some help, otherwise you're going to be looking at going into the pits fairly early, I would say, to make this strategy work. And just looking at what the options are, because the tyre wear is all right-hand side tyres around here. Hard's no stop, probably is going to be the preferred strategy for a number of drivers. You're looking at Strat B, soft to soft, and trying to split it down the middle. But then I would almost go, as Higginson has a look at Stenberg, I would almost go Strat C, which is soft tyre, pray for a safety car at the right time, get onto the hard tyres.
Yeah, and that's probably realistically where C and D strats are, is soft onto hards, or if you commit to the hards early, you leave yourself an option open for softs later in the race and go to those then. But what this is meaning is these guys that are trying to check through need to check out of here. That's their chance to try and make the strategy work. They need to pull gap the way that Noah Taro is currently doing, the way that Foley is currently attempting to do from 2nd place, but he's not quite checking on Ewing the way that he expected to. Grossel's actually struggling quite a bit on trying to get past Ewing. In the end, it's brought Egmanis into this and actually ahead of him as well. Egmanis might be the next one to go through on Ewing, and Ewing, he's fuel saving and he's running to a number, but he's not getting Foley's not getting away from him the way that he should be. Taro is the leading example of it. If you're going to try and make these soft tyres work, you have to do what he's doing. He's at a 6-second gap currently on Foley. Yep, that's what you need to be doing. You need to be clearing out in the distance, build yourself that margin, because that pit lane with tyres is 40 seconds long. You need to make that up somewhere.
Yep.
Safety car definitely do as well, but you need to do your best.
And Foley's not short shifting either. He's using the full revs. He's going up to the better part of 7,200 RPM and moving it up. So he's on full beans at the moment, trying to push through here. And he did say to me earlier in the night he wasn't loving the hards. He went to the soft to see what the soft could do. Here comes Egmanis up the inside. Foley leaves him the space, and if I was Foley, I'd just let him go here. But Egmanis has a bit of a moment on the exit and gives away all the work that he just did trying to make that advantage. And all the time that this is happening out in front, you're looking at Noah Tara. He's moving things right along here now. I have a funny feeling Tara's actually on the hard tyre here, Rhodey. If I just go and have a look at no, he's on the soft tyre. Sorry, soft tyre.
His last lap through was a 7. Or not,
it was very deceiving.
7-1 as the best lap. He's just on a 7.6 then. He's not doing that on a hard tyre. We're just seeing a couple of cars in the pit as well. Bailey Hall's gone 2 laps down currently. I'm not sure what's happened with Bailey. The strategy or something has not gone his way at all. Maybe fuel in for the race.
And a retirement for Ryan Smith too in all of this. Whoops! Yep. And Grossel off the road and gone deep at turn number 1. And that takes him out of that little battle group with Ewing and Foley and Egmanis. So that was self-inflicted. He was just caught on the wrong side of the road and ran a little bit deep. So Taro needs a very large gap to drop into at the moment, and he almost needs a safety car just at precisely the right point in time to get off those softs and get onto those hards. bit further down the field, we were looking for a look at Wayne Walker a bit earlier on. Now, he started on the soft tyre, I believe, Brady, and has moved his way up to 8th ahead of Aiden Williams, who I think is on the hard tyre. So Stenberg, we know, is definitely on the hard tyre, and he'll be pioneering that all the way to the finish. It's just a matter of he's just got to hit the fuel number. That's the important thing for him. He's just got to hit that fuel number. And when I look at the laps that he's doing at the moment there, his fastest lap's a 9.1. His last lap was a 9.1 as well, which actually was his fastest lap of the race. That time around it was a 9.3. So he's just hitting that number. He's consistently hitting that number while everybody else tries to press on and hone in on the back of him and find whatever they need to find, whatever fuel number they need to hit, whatever lap number they're targeting to come in for a stop. They're the ones that are trying to hit all those numbers at the minute. And Stenberg's got clear air. Here comes Walker now for 7th place on Higginson. Bit of elbows out, and will Higginson fight it back? He does. He puts his nose up there and makes Walker go the long way around and a bit of side-to-side contact. Oh, hold on. And Walker will now have the high ground. Yellow flag very briefly at, where was that? That was in Sector 2. And
Lucky Burke is just being out. I'm going to guess the time to that.
Yep, I'd imagine that it sounds like there's been a something go on there for Burke. And off camera, yeah, he's had a compression lock. It just slid into the runoff area. So we'll have that replay actually. I'll bring that one up. We'll just give you the idea of what happened there. So here he comes, and this is all on his own. Ahead of Darren Loughnane. And yep, looks like a compression lock there. There's a bit of smoke on the hard tyre. He didn't hit the wall or anything, but yeah, gave it up pretty quickly.
Yeah, I might have just maybe the racetrack was going or just enjoyment levels, just like quite. Yeah.
Enjoyment levels is a bit of a hard thing too as well. So
yeah, one thing I was going to mention though, and it's just fizzled out thankfully, but I've seen this a few times already in this race, and it's going to be the death of the soft tyre runners. There's soft tyre runners refusing to accept the car behind them is half a second, multiple seconds quicker than them for the lap, and just letting them through, because at this point their battle is not with each other. Their battle is with the hard tyre runners. They need to pull margin on whoever their hard tyre rival is, and like 40 seconds again is that pit transit time. You're going to make it up somewhere, so you probably need to aim to make up 20 seconds in a stint essentially. And Tara is the only one who's probably a real chance of doing that. But that's sort of where you need to go to, is you need to pull out those sort of margins to work with. Sitting there battling each other, not only are you not pulling out time, in case of point where I think Foley had to get back out of a pass that's been implemented on him by quite a few laps ago. Not only are you giving up that time, you're also giving up tyre, and you need that tyre to push through yourself. So if you've got someone behind you on the same tyre compound as you, being the soft tyre, and they come out to pass you, I'm not saying you wave the white flag, but you roll out that red carpet. You let them straight on through, because it's going to help their race, but crucially, more importantly, it helps your race. And it's one of those things where it's going to help you to some degree if you can let him go out, even if he stuffs his strategy a little bit, he was back behind you anyway. At least he's a bit of filler between you and the first hard tyre run. Because we talk about it with Dev Series, having a Super 2 driver in between Super 3 drivers is a good bit of padding. In this race, if you can get a hard tyre runner stuck between you and your soft tyre rival, same thing, bit of padding in the points.
That's exactly right. Yeah, you just got to be very, very mindful about who your battle is with. Now, the hard part for a lot of drivers is they don't know what tyre some of their rivals are on until they come up on them and go, oh, you're on the soft tyre or you're on the hard tyre, and then have to make that call. So, but you can obviously work it out pretty quickly just by judging some of the drivers' pace. Things that are going on at the moment. There's now another yellow flag. Yeah, yellow flag now down at this turn 1, I think. And the cars that are going through at the moment, it's been cleared all but temporarily. Now, the real question for me is, what was all that about? We were watching Lockie Lock just a few seconds ago, and it was Luke Newing, actually. I've got the feedback on that. Newing, who was up in the upper echelons of the top part of the order, has retired. And we have got the replay of this, and I'm not sure if you call this a money shift, Rody, or not, but if you do, we all know what that means. So here we go, in behind Brent Foley, go on board, and yeah, downshifting into expensive engine repair.
Yeah, it's an odd one because Spec would have been like he wouldn't have been troubling the top of the rev range. He would have been keeping the revs down. Might have just got caught out in might have just got caught out in placement and needed to get the car slow down more than it was. And I can't make a conclusive call for Newing, but yeah, he was definitely one out there running a conservative strategy, and it was working out for him fairly well. I think he was the lead runner on that strategy, and it's just fallen apart for him completely.
Now there's stops. There are pit stops. So Igmanis in. He only got 11 laps on the soft tyre, so in and hard tyres going on for him, and he will feed back out into the traffic in 19th. So he was up in the sort of top half a dozen spots for a moment there. So that just goes to show you how much time lost. 1:46 for the lap time.
Actually, on that,
and Walker
and Tara's been in as well.
Tara has been in as well. Yes, he has. He's actually fallen down the order to 17th. So Brent Foley's the race leader.
So Tara's not one I was thinking of going. So Tara's not going soft, which makes sense because teammates aren't going soft. So yeah, no. So Tara's doing soft hard. The question then going to be is, are we going to see any of these guys at the front? And the front actually at this point is just the two PBF cars, because Kurt Stenberg's the first of the hard tyre runners. Are we going to see any of these guys push any further? They're going to have to push.
Oh, if you Foley, you don't want to be doing that because you're going to surrender the lead right now if you're not too careful. And no, he just hangs on for a moment here. But this is what you were talking about, Rhodey. If you make that mistake, you don't want to fight it. You want to just make sure that you guys can get the margin that you need to drop back into the pack where you are planning to try and drop back into. Right now, soft tyre starting to show its age a little bit. In 13 or better part of 12 and a half laps under green flag condition, full pelt, so they've chewed a fair bit of it up. But have a look at Stenberg in the back of the shot. Who's he got with him? He's got Aiden Williams hanging on to his coattails at the moment. Another one of the hard tyre runners that started this race. So more stops happening as well. Higginson in, so he comes out in 19, so this is going to cycle Tara up. Kiddis came in as well. There's the race leaders in the background coming through the final corner. So drivers that are in the mid-pack are definitely starting to become very close to being lapped. So if that's probably why they're starting to make some of those decisions. As Williams pits.
Was he? Why he's doing that?
I don't know why he was doing that either. Tire. Yeah, he was on the hard tyre. Did he run out of fuel? That is bizarre.
I've got no answer for that one at all. That one makes zero sense from what I'm looking at. But yeah, he was having a pretty good runner there as well, and he was second on the hards. Stenberg's pulling. Well, actually, Stenberg's just actually been passed by Devonish and all that as well. So I'm not sure we missed something happening there because he did have a 2-second gap to Grossel, and now it's 4 seconds. So perhaps a mistake there for Stenberg. But the pace these hard tyres guys are running already, they were at least starting to rein in Foley and Grossel.
Yeah. So that's
even if they're going to make it to a half, do a soft off, they're not going to compete for the lead with this pace.
Here you go, Rhodey. You called it spot on. Big lock up for Stenberg going down into turn number 1, and there he went off the grass. So that was a pass for Devonish at the end of the day, and yeah, very close to a bit of contact there. But that's hard tyre runner versus hard tyre runner too. So that is for position in the race. So that will be an interesting little battle toward the end of this one to see how everything pans out for those two. But they are not quite running nose to tail at the moment, but that is effectively the race lead for Will Devonish there at turn number 1 on the previous tour. These two still going. It's actually been a change of lead as well at the moment. So Grossel's leading the race now, has wrestled that position away from Foley. Again, these two have to stop at some point in the next 20 laps. We just don't know where. They're holding out. I think they're probably trying to go as far as they can and hold out for a safety car. But looking at the lap times, they haven't really sort of gotten into the hurt zone yet. The soft tyre times are in the mid-ish high 7s, so 9s, so 9.6 and 9.7. When the soft tyre dips into the 10s, that's where it starts to become a problem. I think that's the evidence we saw in Development Series 2, Rhodey, because we had that safety car intervention and we got to about lap 20, lap 21. It was sort of masking what the true crossover point was, and when it started to get to about a minute 10 for a soft tyre run, you sort of knew you were starting to get into a world of hurt.
Yeah, so I think it's the other thing I was looking at just with how these guys drive. They're actually going to try and go soft. We already mentioned Foley's version of the hard tyre. It's sort of been the team theme anything. I recall a few years back where we were at Adelaide, we recognised hard tyre strat's probably the one to go with, but we weren't enjoying racing on the one bit. We've gotten better since then, but still, if you've got an aversion to the hard tyre, you'll run the soft tyre. They'll be running half-half if they can. The other thing, though, I think with where Foley's at, we know where Foley's cars setups are usually at. A little bit tailored. We saw that through one a couple of laps ago. Probably a bit of a strategy call there, but also if anyone's tyre is going to go first, I think it's going to be Foley's.
Yep.
Gross had to put a bit more work to get to where he's currently sitting, but he's got experience from GT racing, he's got experience from other platforms where Foley doesn't quite have that as directly. He's always known for his taily setups. He's going to be the one whose tyres I reckon are going to go first in these two.
Yeah, well, his teammates actually got a bit of a fight on his hands with Anthony Green at the moment. So Lockie Locke actually just rounded up the pair of them. So he's actually moved up into, well, it's a net 4th place for him at the moment with the 2 out in front that still got to stop. But Boak's got his hands full with Anthony Green at the moment. I think there's a tyre disparity here as well, I believe. Boak is Boak on the soft and Green on the hard here, yes. Rhodey, I think? Yes. So yeah, and I think Locke has gone through, and Locke I think's on the hard tyre too, so he's disappearing up the road. Yep, yellow sidewalls on the 237, the Arrow McLaren inspired Indigenous livery for this round, so up to 4th for him. So with Boak still to stop, Green will effectively move up to P7 when that happens, which would then become P5 by the time everybody else goes through and stops. So still a bit to shake out in this one, and I think there might have been a mistake for Foley on the previous lap because Devonish has definitely had a very good lap. He had a 108.8, so probably has done the hard yards, saved the fuel. Now tucked in behind Brent Foley, and for Will, this is patience, and the gap opens up. Oh, yep, I can see the option was there to do it. There goes the right-hand side mirror cover. And for Foley, soft tyres are probably getting pretty close, but Devonish seems to have a turn of speed at the moment and has moved up to effective race leader, but is currently 2nd on the road after that pass on his fellow ASR. Oh, Foley with that brake lock. I thought for a moment it could have been a nose-to-tail collision down at turn 1, but he got the brake pedal checked fairly quickly, got himself in order. Here goes Anthony Green. And looking at Phil Boak, still can't get that move done. So Boak holding on for dear life, and it might be done now. There it is.
Yep, there it is. Yeah, so for where, it's actually all three of the 4 PBF cars in the top 10. Well, I think these guys are going to be in the next lap unless their strategy is to hire for a safety car, in which case they're only going to have another lap or 2 left, I reckon, before those tyres are really going to be gone. We've already seen Boak wobbling it wide at 1. We've seen Foley wobbling, actually we wobbled a little bit further as such. He's dropped the spot to Stenberg as well. He's going to be in the lane, I think, this lap.
Yeah,
and
I'd say
Grossel
so.
As well. He's
Grossel's
holding a margin, but he's definitely, the tyres are starting to go off. He's just on 9.5.
Yep, Foley's in. You're absolutely right. So Foley into the lane. Grossel goes around again, even though his previous lap was a 10.1 and that lap was a 9.5. So the tyres are starting to hurt a little bit here. And I imagine Foley is going to probably go, he's got to lap 18, so I'd say he's going to put on another soft tyre and just go through to the finish here. I don't see any reason why he would encourage the use of the hards at this stage. Oops, here he is in the lane. And Grossel holding on here. And his teammate in too. Actually, there's a double stack at PBF Race Engineering, and it actually wasn't too bad. His teammate only had to wait about a second for the 074 to clear the lane before he could come in. So not 100% timed, but pretty well timed. Foley's going to find himself in 16th and just ahead of Kiddis and Higginson, who's harassing Kiddis. Now down the inside here, Higginson, and brake lock up and a bit of contact, a bit of leaning on each other here as well. Got to leave some space, be careful. And Higginson slides out the other side, I think, after Kiddis checked the accelerator at the exit of 1.
Yeah, not the, and he's fired it back.
Oh, yep, fired it down the inside.
There as well.
Yep, and Higginson got upset with that and loops it and gives the fence a good old whack there. Drop another spot to Steve Warwick. I won't be surprised. Oh, and he's dumped it again. So I actually won't be surprised to see, I'm going to be careful, I won't be surprised to see that one probably in the steward's room after this one.
Yeah, he is lucky that we're not running full simulation level damage in this one, because if he...
That was a hefty whack.
The whack of the wall, that would have punched the transaxle about a foot to the outside of the car.
Yes, that's right. Yep, and he's run off the road there as well, just while we're looking at Grossel resuming things. So I think he's either got some steering damage or he's got some car damage, and he'll be in the lane pretty shortly. Grossel came in and stopped while all that was happening. So that has cycled Devonish to the lead of the race from Stenberg and Redmond, who just went past Higginson. Yeah, and I think Higginson's actually got a front left puncture after all of that. So he's emitting some pretty decent smoke. And yep, on cue, into the lane. And yep, big F for Higo, as Hans in the chat says. And he's going to have to replace that front left tyre, which he'll probably just do all four anyway at this point. And he'll go a lap or two down.
From where he's sitting, he could honestly play the gamble and just stop at this point, try and buy himself back into something. That said, he's going to come out 23 seconds or behind the next car.
He's going to be running a risk of going very close to behind Cam Rutledge, and Bailey Hall's a bit too fast. So I think Higo's definitely going to come out of this in 21st place. And as Rutledge is actually about to go through on the front straight. So yeah, that's turned into a bit of a sour end to the race for him. Unless, of course, the safety car comes out and you get your lucky dog and you get your lead lap back.
Absolutely. I think there is going to be a few cars that are... Cam Rutledge is currently... No, Callahan's currently actually the lead car lap down, so he can need a few of those for him to buy himself into that.
Yeah,
but
that's right.
But yeah.
Yes, so that's how all that sits at the moment. And who else is in the lane there? I think Higginson is in the lane, and yeah, he's coming back out. He's actually just going to make it back out on the track before Bailey Hall comes around. There was a brief yellow flag there. Someone went into the lane. I think, was that Lockie Lock that went into the lane? Yes, it was.
Lock, yep.
Yeah, so that's a bit of a surprise.
Yeah, unless Power's predictions state that he's going to see a safety car in the next lap or two.
Well, he was on the hard tyre, so he's obviously going to take the hard tyre off and put the soft tyre on at this stage. You wouldn't want to do anything else. But yeah, that's a very curious case for him.
So it must be the case. Well, it'd be a case of, it won't so much be a case of he's swapping tyres. He didn't feel confident on fuel.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, he wants to run full beats.
He's come in to pick up fuel, and while he's here, he's gone, well, I'm going to turn this into a hard soft. So what we have now seen is we've seen all four strategy plays in this race, assuming we don't see the likes of Stenberg pit in this race, and based on the fuel saving we were seeing earlier, I don't think we will.
Yeah.
We've seen hard, no stop, we've seen hard soft, we've seen soft hard, and thanks to VBF, we've seen the soft.
Yep. So we've seen four different strategies. We're about to work out which one of them is actually correct. So at the moment, the strategy play that seems to be playing the most is the hard no stop, and the drivers that are trying to execute that are Will Devonish, who leads the race by 5.2 seconds over Kurt Stenberg, who's on the hard tyre as well, and Tim Redmond, who all three of them are trying to execute the hard no stop strategy. Noah Tara executed the soft hard strategy. He's currently moved up to 4th by everybody cycling through. And where is he at the moment? Let's just do the math here. He is the better part of 12 seconds behind Redmond with, 13 laps to go, and is catching Redmond at about a second a lap. So third's not insurmountable for Tara at this stage. And I think, just punching in the numbers at the moment, Rhodey, I think if he was to finish third, I think Tara would still be the round winner overall, even with Stenberg's 2 seconds. Tara with a win and a third, I think, is enough possibly to maybe take the round win by a couple of points and see how things go. So he's in 4th. Oh, there's a car off. That's Higginson, who's just peeled into the drag strip area, and I think probably into retirement. There we go. Anthony Green is 5th. And I think he's also been trying to execute the hard no-stop strategy. So he's actually dropped in, I think, behind Tara after all of this. I'm just going to check my numbers and see if Green actually has come in for a stop. No, he hasn't. So he's trying to execute the hard no-stop as well. Luke Speck for SCS Satellite Racing. He is on the hard no-stop. Darren Loughnane hard no stop. Look at this, 18 spots for Darren Loughnane. So from the rear of the grid, after not finishing race 1, up to 7th place with the hard no stop strat. So that's worked out superbly for him. His teammates getting the flashing lights from Luke Speck ahead at the moment. There's some lap traffic. There it is happening up at the hairpin. Wayne Walker in 8th. Now, I believe Walker is executing the soft hard strategy because he came in around about lap 11 to make that happen. So that's worked out for him with 11 spots gained and possibly maybe another spot to come if he can hone in on the back of Darren Loughnane. Rory Collins in 9th, and he's now in a little bit of a battle here. He's got Igmanis and Grossel behind. Now, Collins is trying to execute the hard no-stop strategy. You've got Igmanis executing the soft hard strategy, and you've got Grossel executing the soft hard strategy. Grossel soft strategy. And we'll stay with this one for a minute here, because it looks like there might be a bit... Oh, it's a parting of the Red Seas down the front straight, as I think it was... was it Igmanis went through on one side, Gross went through on the other, and Collins wanted none of that and let them both go through.
Yeah, so Igmanis lined up to pass Collins. Gross saw a gap between the pair of them and said, I'm just going to put myself there. And yeah, Collins, he's very much trying to fuel save. He backed out that early anyway. He was going to. Very much he saw that and went, yeah, okay, I'm going to steer clear of this and just let them sail on through. And they've already, you can see the advantage that fresh hards and confidence with fuel, or in the case of Grossel, fresh softs and confidence on fuel is doing for these cars. So they've already checked out a second while battling. And
yes, that's
so
right.
Actually, it's Aidan Williams is going to be the next one to catch Collins next.
Now, Williams went the hard strategy, which we thought was really confusing, considering he started on the hard, and we thought, well, he came in a bit early. So, again, probably confidence on fuel, I think, is probably the issue there. And he runs 12th. Brett Foley has gone the soft strategy in 13th. Cox, I'm pretty sure, I think he may have had an incident earlier in the race, because I recall him starting on the hard tyre, and yeah, his times have been consistently in the 11s and the 12s and the 10s, so a funny feeling he's been trying to execute a different strategy compared to everybody else. Kiddis in 15th. Rutledge is trying to unlap himself here. Kiddis has been in for a stop, and I think he's actually on the soft-hard strategy. Locke went the hard-soft, the opposite strategy, and Boak PBF strategy. I take it he's probably on a soft tyre at the moment, and he is. And then Steve Warwick, who's on the hard tyre now, but he has stopped. And then the last of the runners that are running, Darryl Callahan's now on the hard tyre, having, I think, started on the soft. Rutledge has been in the lane, he's now on the hard tyre, and Bailey Hall is the last car still in the race. He's 2 laps down. Still haven't got to the bottom of what happened there with him very early in the race. I reckon he had a pit stop. I reckon he had some sort of damage. His lap time on lap 4 was a 3:19. So that will explain why he has gone 2 laps down, but it won't tell the full story yet.
No, I think it's one that's going to have to be one that maybe Bailey will walk us through at some point, or we'll have a bit of a dig later on down the line as well.
Yeah, and I'm just having a look at something here as well, and it just alluded to it in the chat with Ryan Smith is out of this race. Yeah, with basically, yes, you've got to be careful if you're on a tyre that is faster than the car around you, that you don't hold them up, because the rules, as I've mentioned this a few times now, the rules clearly state if you do get the blue flags, you're of course obliged to get out of the way. However, if you're on a faster tyre, you need to be seen to be driving away from that car in order to be obliged to get out of the way for blue flags. Bailey couldn't quite do that, even though Speck is trying to execute a hard no-stop strategy. Hall was not able to pull away on the hard tyres, so therefore was obliged to get out of the way.
Absolutely, yeah, and what that has resulted in is that the London has got a little bit closer to the back of Speck, which would be why Ryan Smith will be keeping a keen eye on that one for his SES teammate.
That's right. So Devonish now up at the hairpin, and through he goes. He's extended that lead. It's out to 7.8 seconds over Stenberg, and Redmond is the one I'm sort of keeping an interested watch on at the moment, because he has been chipping away slightly at the advantage that's enjoyed by Kurt Stenberg over him. It's 2.5 seconds there or thereabouts. It's just gone out now to to 2.9. It might come down a little bit. Visually, it doesn't look like it's 2.9. We'll get an update as we come across the line this time around and see what it is. And it's now down to 2.7. So last time around, Stenberg for a 9.4, Redmond a 9.3. So only a 10th gained. He needs to be making a few more gains than that if he would like a shot at P2. But Redmond doing what he needs to do at the moment, because he needs to keep pumping these laps in, because Tara behind is 1.1 seconds faster. And he's been consistent. There he is in the background. He's 1.1 seconds faster consistently is the important thing. So right now, with 6 and a bit laps to go, it's going to be very tight between this man on screen here, the Beyond Racing at number 43, and the Amped Up Racing by CRE number 26. That's the interesting battle I'm keeping an eye out for, Rody, till the finish.
Yeah, and now it's very much, early in the race, you can kind of go, it was very much in the advantage of the hard tyre or the pure no-stop hard tyre runners. Now it's flipped the other way, because these guys are now going to be, not that they weren't at the start, but these guys are very much still running into that fuel conservation window, trying to make it to the end on fuel. And I'm interested to see, with the gap that Vervinish has pulled out here, whether it's going to be a price to pay at the other end, and we're going to see a very slow last few laps from him. Either that or Stenberg's going to really put the hammer down in a lap or two. For Redmond, he's probably the best thing he could do in a perfect world is get ahead of Stenberg and get him to be the extra padding that he needs to Tara behind. But he probably can't do that because his fuel won't let him, and if his fuel won't let him, his tyres probably won't, because his tyres will be feeling very second at this point. Whereas, even though he is on hards, by virtue of having pitted, he's got enough fuel to make it into the race. He's got much fresher tyres. They're hard tyres, they are a second a lap difference tyres. Between that and the fuel saving at least. Tara's got the car pace, and Tara's very much at the mercy of that, as opposed to the start of the race where the soft tyre runners were at the mercy of the fact that they were going to lose 40 seconds regardless.
That's right.
Now they're the ones that have been through the pit lane, they're the ones with the advantage. Like, the race is going to be too short for him. The pace that Leonard Grossel's had chipping away back there, coming in from the lead with a slightly quicker pit stop than Foley in a much smoother, much quicker second stint. He's knocking on the door of maybe getting up towards 7th if he can keep piling on. He's getting probably onto the back of the Luke Speck, Darren Loughnane battle towards the end of this race. He's have much better tyres than the pair of those.
Yep, that's something to keep an eye out for as well, because Speck is just ahead of Loughnane now. That's been a change for position in the last lap or so, and Loughnane now down to 8th. He was running 7th. He's now 8th. Grossel very much got eyes on the back of the number 31 in the next couple of laps as we start lap 31. Egmanis coming along for the ride as well, so Loughnane may find himself shuffled down to 10th by the end of this, because these two drivers up, and actually might even be the same for Speck, because these two drivers are very much trying to execute the hard no-stop strategy. So tyres have seen quite a lot of action in better part of 31 laps now. Drivers behind, much fresher rubber. There's the evidence of it from the back of the Nerf number 31 Mustang. It is starting to go to a point where the tyre is locking up under braking. Grossel's right there now. This is going to be probably an easy pass top of the hill if Loughnane doesn't defend it. He does, stays in the wheel tracks, but that's probably a temporary stay of execution, I would say, until they get to the final corner here. Now, if you're Grossel, you take the wide line, you set it up. You get the drive off the corner like that, and then you run down the front straight on full beans and you make the pass at turn 1. That's what he's tried to do. Egmanis is trying to do the same thing on him, though. So this will be the key piece of the puzzle here. Getting sucked along in the draft. If you're locked in, you've got to move it over, but he knows it's coming. And a 2-for-1 special, straight down the inside. There goes the PBF Renstall car. Have a look at this, though. Loughnane tried to get Speck at the same time. Speck's not having any of it, and he's fighting that one. And Egmanis got caught a little bit short at 1. He's now going to pick Loughnane off, long way around at turn 4, and now down towards turn 5. And he gets now back onto Speck's rear bumper. So Loughnane did lose the couple of spots we were expecting to at the end of the day, and there's been a few changes for positions 7, 8, 9 and 10, and I think Speck is probably next in the firing line for Egmanis.
Yeah, what Lonnie has to do, if he can, he's got anything in reserve, is to check in on the back of Egmanis, let him be the pick that forces Spec wide and reins him back in. But that's what I think. Logman is just running out of it.
Here we go.
And yeah, Igmanus is going to file straight on through in the last couple of corners. But more or less, actually going to give Spec a toe down the front straight as well.
Yep.
Which is going to help him in that battle. That's a much better run, it looks like, for Logman actually than Spec through that last corner by virtue of not having a car to compete with. But it might not. It probably won't be enough.
Not close enough.
To do anything about that one. So it's going to be them in at 9th and 10th, and Igmanus up to 8th. And actually, I predictions. He's a little bit quicker than my predictions. We might see one more position for Grossel. He's got 3 laps left, and he's got Anthony Green and 2 seconds off the road.
Yep, so Green, another one of the drivers trying to execute the hard no-stop strategy. And so Grossel's there. There's Green halfway to the hairpin. So it's not an easy task over the next 2.5 laps to erase that deficit. And
I will cut us from this for a second. We will go back to it, but the gap of the lead's closed up big time. Not the lead so much, but second, third, fourth is now covered by less than a second.
Limbo. Yep, Stenberg at 10-0 last time around. Redmond now down to a 10th, and Tara right there as well. So this is super, super interesting. And I'm trying to work out what happened to Stenberg on the last tour, because he's been consistently doing 9s. He's now dropped from doing mid-9s to a 9.8 to a 9.8 to a 10-0. So is he trying to get the last little drops that he needs on fuel? Like, he's probably been fuel saving all race long. As Redmond now needs to defend from Tara, who's going to have the inside running here down to 7. And there's some contact there, bit of mirror banging, bit of door handle banging. Got to be careful. They don't want to take themselves off here because the last lap's about to commence, and the anti-coal number 47 is in a spot here where it could be picked off. And Redmond, did he get hung up on the curb? Did he get hung up on the curb there, or was there some contact? That's a difficult one to judge. They were definitely fighting it. Meanwhile, Tara onto the back of Stenberg pretty quickly, and going to drag this down towards turn 1. Now, remember what happened at race 1 at Barbagallo 3 weeks ago. There was a little bit of contact between these two. They both ended up with flat tyres on the final tour, which then gave Will Devonish the win, who came through and took that one at the end of the day. So Will's going to get it here, but we've got to keep an eye on what's going on here. Stenberg throws the defensive line down into turn number 5, doing what he's got to do. Tara's going to look to the outside here. Can he get the long way around? It's a long way to go. And Stenberg's got to leave in the room, and if he gets this done, it'll be a super pass, and he's got it done, I think. He has. Gets it down the inside at 7.
Cut back across, but there just wasn't the room there for Stenberg, and he's bounced off the side of Tara, and Tara's through.
Tara is through, gets through to second place. Meanwhile, the race leader coming to the line, executes the hard no-stop strategy and fuel saves all the way to another victory, second victory in the last 4 races. And Will Devonish puts the disappointment of race 1 behind him with a race 2 victory in the longer distance format. So second place to Noah Tara, with third to Kurt Stenberg and fourth to Redmond. But I'm still going to be rather interested, Rhodey, to see what happened on the second to last lap, just to see if there was some any contact. We'll go back and take a look at that one and just have a look. 5th for Wayne Walker, so 14 places gained for him. Grossel on his way to the line in 6th place, with Igmanus 7th. Green 8th, so Green faded in that last little run to the line. What was his last lap? An 11.2 for his final lap, so that's what's caused him to come unstuck. Lochnan to 9th. He got the better of Luke Speck, who finishes 10th again, and another top 10 finish for Luke Speck. So that's the interesting bit of this one for me, is he's done another top 10 finish. Foley 11th, Locke, then Kiddis, Collins, both, Williams, Steve Warwick for 17th, Callahan for 18th, and then you've got Cox, Rutledge and Bailey Hall. But we'll go back to the replay because I want to have a look, Rhodey, just what happened on that final lap between Redmond and Tara. So on the second to last lap, I should say. So here we go. This was up at the hairpin, and through they go. There's a little bit of door handle banging coming through this part of the track here. So this part was all fine. Yep, we go on board, wrong camera. We go on board, and this is the bit that I want to take a look at. So Tara up underneath the rear of Redmond, and yep, Redmond hung up on the curb. So he just got his tyres on the curb, a little bit too much throttle, and that spat him off. So there's definitely no contact in that situation there. Tara will be fine.
Absolutely, yeah, just good hard racing.
Good hard racing.
Just hung up on the curb, and very much when you're out there with the height of those curbs to that section, once you're out there, especially with where the tyres were at for the pair of them, he was gone.
Yep. It's a hard no stop versus the softer rubber there. As all the cars are now coming back to the lane. So from a round honours perspective, as we punch all the details in, you're going to have Noah Tara's going to be your round winner with a good chunk of points there. He's going to finish overall with 288 points for the round. A pair of third places for Stenberg sees him with 258. Luke Newing was a DNF in that race, so he's not going to score any points. And I'm just trying to work out who third overall might have been. We might have to just do some numbers and work that out, because Will Devonish is on 219, but I suspect it's probably going to be Redmond will be third overall with 240. And then possibly Anthony Green with 186. I'm just doing the math here just to do it really quickly, though. Then it'll be Will Devonish with 219. So that's where our top four are probably going to stem from, Rody, I would say. If I think you're going to be trying to organise a few people to come up and see us. But yes, round honours in order: Noah Tara, then Kurt Stenberg, and then Tim Redmond, and then we have Will Devonish fourth overall. So he's got to pick a couple. I've instructed him he's got to pick 3 to 4. Yep. And we will soon find out who's coming up to pay us a visit.
Just going to get them sorted now, but it's going to make it nice and easy. We'll just grab all the podium sitters.
Yep. So while Rhodey's doing that, we'll just have a quick bit of a flick through the provisional points standings as it sits right now. So based on where everybody was when they started the night, if I bring up the drivers' standings here and we flip back over to our top 10, the only things that have changed in that top 10 standing is a couple of the points differences. And there has been a few small changes in the position. So Lewis Wedding, who you can see there, was 7th coming into tonight. Brenton Foley has replaced him in 7th. Curtis Igmanis, who was 11th coming into the night, has moved himself up to 8th. Wedding drops to 9th. And Brendan Ross moves down to 10th. So they were the main changes that come out of tonight for the based on the standings there. The top 6 position-wise remain unchanged, but the points that go with them definitely will be changing along with things. So that's just a quick recap while Rhodey's organising a few drivers to come and have a chat. And Rhodey, I believe you've got everybody now.
I do, yes. So we'll start with the podium for the round, and we'll go reverse order up. So Kurt Stenberg, it's your second weekend now on a trot without picking up a win in either race, but still a pair of thirds gets you set up very nicely as we continue on through the season.
I would like to correct you, Rody. I won race 2 last week, 1 in a row.
Sorry, you make a grand point. Yeah, that hasn't been corrected.
I won it.
Yep, that hasn't been corrected at my end. So you're right, you did win that one. You're right there, but sorry. Completely erases all that. But there's still 2/3. That's a very nice run for tonight.
Yeah, I'm actually happy. Like, to be honest, I thought I'd do better at this track, but coming in, I was very worried about the struggles that I was going to face looking at the times. And I thought race 1, it started well, but we just didn't have the pace for Noah at all. And then race 2, we tried the no-stop strategy, and man, I drove that car in that second race. I'd made a mistake and ran off and lost 2 seconds at one stage off at turn 1, but I drove that car as consistently as I could drive it. I finished with 2% on the rear tire, and I finished with about, maybe a litre of fuel, and I couldn't have driven that any better if I had tried. So kudos to whatever these guys are doing, because there's absolutely no way doing that strategy that I did that I could have got a better result than what I did. So it's disappointing, but also at the same time, we still got 2/3 and we maximized what we could do this weekend. So we just got to look forward.
Absolutely, and that's all you can really do is under the stuff you can control is do the very best with what you're given. And yeah, 2/3 maybe not what you're aiming for, but a decent haul of points, and it just helps to work on that buffer from those behind you. We're going to keep this fairly short, given that we're both in broadcast looking to have a shorter night tonight. But going on to the next round at the Gold Coast, it's the last, I'm pretty sure, the last track before we head
Correction
to...
is Sydney Motorsport Park.
Sorry, it is Sydney Motorsport Park. Sorry, we've been switched, so we're... Yeah, again, second thing I've stuffed up in this interview. Sydney Motorsport Park, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, looking forward to that one. I mean, it's going to be interesting strategy-wise because I see we're sort of boxed into the same strategy, all of us. So, but I think that'll be cool. I love it. It's probably one of my favorite tracks. So I'm hoping that whatever I'm doing setup-wise works better there than whatever these guys are doing. Because if not, it's going to be struggle street for me. But we'll see.
All good. Great work by yourself tonight, Kurt, and we'll catch you in a few weeks' time at SMP.
No worries.
Alrighty, moving over to second in the points. Actually, no, that would have been second in the points. My math is terrible. I'm doing a great job of this. Just going to go the next one down in the list. Will Devonish, a 12th in race 1. Obviously not what you're aiming for in a championship defense, but a win in race number 2 and pretty comfortable one at that.
Yeah, race 1 was a bit of a bummer, getting the tyre on the grass. Admittedly, I hadn't done enough practice with a not so heavy car, so it was not acting like I was expecting, which I was really disappointed. I think we could have gotten a podium in that race as well. So yeah, coming out race 2, keeping to the strategy we had, we did a lot of work on setup, so our car was she was pretty good by the end of it. It had still 3 litres left in the tank and nearly 10% on the tyres, so I was really happy with how that panned out. But and I'm really happy with how Noah drove tonight. It's by far and away his best round, so really proud of him. The rest of the team, bit of a bummer, but it is what it is.
Absolutely. You clearly went with a different strategy call to the rest of the team. I think most of the guys in the team were splitting the race up between a soft and a hard at some point there, but the decision to run hards the entire way, was that through sort of consultation or testing, or was that just some sort of hunch that you went off by yourself separate to the rest of the team?
So yeah, we did a test last night, and it ended up, I did 2 full race runs, and it ended up being about a 5-second difference between the two. So last night I was actually going to do the Noah strategy, but then changed my mind pretty much the last minute tonight, and yeah, worked out.
Fair enough. Well, going on to SMP in a few weeks' time, what's your thoughts?
I would have preferred it to be the shorter race, but shorter layout. But I think I'm the only one that actually likes the shorter layout. So, yeah, it's a pretty solid track, and the racing's pretty tight around there. So, yeah, looking forward to that.
Absolutely. Well, great work by yourself tonight, Will, to pick yourself up another win. It's been, well, actually, no, not first one in a while. You picked up race 1 at Barbagoa, so I'm doing good with these. But good to pick up another win and add that to the tally, and we'll catch you in a few weeks' time at SMP.
Thank you.
And moving down my list to third, but he is the winner for tonight on points, and is also the winner of his first race outright, and that is Noah Tara. Noah, it's not your first win, obviously. You've picked up a couple in the past by virtue of being in the right place at the right time when stewarding results came out, but it's your first one on track, and that's going to feel pretty good.
Yeah, it was good to win one on pace. It's been a while since I've done that.
Fair enough. Okay.
Yeah,
Bit more of an answer to that one. But yeah, okay. So so first in race 1, that was very much a bit of a show of force there, especially of the likes of Kurt Stenberg, who just couldn't run with you. Race 2, you very much had to play back into the hand, though. It was very much you were on the back foot by pitting, and they had to come back through the field. But you did what you needed to in the end. Unfortunate for Tim Redmond, who caught the curb as you guys were battling for that second place, but really good running in race number 2.
Yeah, I was thinking about doing the no stop beforehand, but I don't know. I'm not very good at conserving the car, like fuel and tires. So I thought, maybe I'll get like a top 5 if I just do the alternate strategy. I don't think it was the quickest strategy because you had to fight traffic, but no, there's definitely the best strategy for me to do a stop and just try and fight through the field. And yeah, it turned out pretty good in the end. I don't know how Will made his car last because I was actually starting to run out of tyres towards the end as well.
Fair enough. Well, going on to SMP in a few weeks' time, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, it's not my favourite track. I'm not. It's not too bad though. Like I think it'll make some good racing. I reckon it'll be probably pretty tight at the front. And yeah, to be honest, I'm just waiting for Gold Coast. That's a good track.
Fair enough. Well, great work tonight by yourself, Noah, to pick up your first win and to pick up the round win overall. And we'll catch you in a few weeks' time at SMP.
Yep, thank you.
And lastly, moving over to Luke Newing, and very much a go and a woe tonight. Your first top 5, your first podium in ASR Supercars, but backing that up with an early DNF in race 2.
Yeah, thanks, Roddy. We had the pace going in. The setup felt great. We were a little bit disappointed with qualifying. I felt like there was more pace in it, but still managed a P4 start. Then the chaos happened, and yeah, I just still don't know what happened behind me, but it looked pretty mental. So yeah, we when the race went back to green, we were sticking with Tara and Stenny, and then we got past Stenny when he made a mistake and couldn't keep up with Tara. I don't know how he was that quick. Absolute mental to be that quick, but pretty happy with the P2. And then yeah, second race ended up in flames.
Fair enough. Well, it was interesting to see how the SES guys went tonight. A 7th and an 8th for Tony up there, keeping himself in the thick of it. Also, good running from Rory as well, just quietly pecking away in the background. Actually, Specky as well with a couple of top 10s, keeping that streak alive for him. You guys are doing a pretty good job this year. Obviously, a bit of a tumultuous, I think is the good word for it, team dynamic going on there with so many young heads in the game. But you guys are doing pretty well.
Yeah, everyone's doing. We're getting better every round. We're struggling with tire life, so we need to get on top of that a bit. But we're still figuring a lot of stuff out. So every round we just chip away at it. And I think they lost the team lead. I'm not sure if they have or not, but yeah, it was pretty surprising that they were still leading the points heading into this round. So
absolutely. Just quickly, finally, then your thoughts coming into SMP. Have you done any running there in the past?
yeah, I've run it in AC before. It's a pretty fun track. The mods are very similar, so it should help out quite a bit. Pretty happy that there's a pit stop because that makes tires a bit easier. So looking forward to it.
Fair enough. Well, great work by yourself tonight, Luke, to pick up your first podium of the season. And we'll catch you next time at SMP.
Thank you, mate.
And that has been our podium plus one, or actually technically all of our podium sitters for tonight. Nether.
Thank you very much, mate, as always. And yes, it was good to have a different voice in the box for a change with Luke Newing, and just something that he touched on there about the racing at SMP, where he said there is a pit stop and, it's good because it'll spice some things up and stuff. That's a valid point, because from this point onwards in the championship, there are some changes to how the tyre rules work. We talked about this last time out as well. So the first 6 rounds of the season, there's been an open tyre format. You have been able to decide what tyres you want to run at any point in time. So which is why we've seen a lot of drivers come along and decide to run the harder tyre compound, because they've been able to work out from a strategy point of view, they can actually get that tyre home and do a lot more no stopping. That goes out the window with Sydney Motorsport Park. It's the first of the rounds where there is some tyre rules in place, and it's a 2-race format. It's the same type of format as tonight, so the short format and the long format. So the soft tyre is the only tyre you can use in race number 1, so everybody's mandated to use that compound. And in race 2, you must use both the compounds, which is the longer distance race. So you've got to use the hard at some stage, you have to use the soft at some stage, and there will be records being kept as to who's on what tyre. So that's going to add a different strategy element to that round. Then we get to Surfers Paradise, which again is an open round format. The 2 races at Long Beach, which is the short and long format, you have to use a soft tyre everywhere. So in the longer distance race, they're definitely going to see some stops there. Adelaide at the end of the year, the hard tyre is the mandated tyre for that round. And then Topor at this stage is sprint races, but we haven't locked in a tyre compound or anything for that just yet. There's still a few things to work out. But the same applies to the development series as well. So for their races for the next couple of rounds as well, there's mandated compounds too. So those that are going to be coming along and doing some extra wildcard appearances in the series, they are going to have to get used to running those tyre rules in the development series as well. So will that spice the championships up? That's the next question that we'll have to answer. And for both those, you'll have to tune into the Loose Sim Network in 2 weeks' time for the development series, and here on Outworld Broadcasting for the Supercars rounds at Sydney Motorsport Park in 2 and 3 weeks respectively. So until then, everybody, please drive safely, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.